Once again, good morning, Mr. Chairman. As a follow-up from our last meeting, I distributed copies within your packet. I think you have them today too, is the bylaws, the revised bylaws. So I will put that on the next meeting agenda for discussion, for review and discussion. So no action today, but just for
I got a quick question on that. One of the items that we talked about during that work session, in addition to the bylaws, was potential emails. Did that ever go anywhere? I didn't notice anything in this, but I don't know if this was the place for it. So
no, we'll need to talk about that elsewhere. No.
very good, thank you.
And then the other is per I think 3 of you, we registered you for the Arizona Planning State Conference this year, September 3rd through the 5th in Tucson. Omni, it's Vice Chair Globe and Commissioner Scott and Commissioner Mooney, 3 of you, and then there's some staff also going. Okay, that's all that I have. Unless you have some questions of me.
Harvey.
Yes.
Tempe, not Tucson?
Yes.
Yes.
Tempe, sorry. Did I say?
You said Tucson. I just wanted
Yeah.
clarification. Thank you.
Tucson was last year.
Thanks.
Sorry. That's all I have.
And this says there's a District 2 video.
No, we're not doing that.
Okay.
It's not ready.
And so with that, we will pick up where we left off a couple weeks ago. Thank you for everyone that was here for that long, arduous day and ended up getting kicked to this week. I apologize. Things happen. And part of me says I'm glad we didn't keep you all till midnight as well. So thank you for being accommodating and working this out. So with that, I will call SUP 006-23. Is this one? No, sorry, Meyer. There you go. This one went to.
Begin with F as in Frank.
Yep. There we go. I had the full agenda in front of me. Yep. PZPA-016-24 and PZ-030-24, PZPD-018-24.
Good morning, Mr. Vice Chair, Commissioners. North Copper Basin, otherwise known as the case numbers you had mentioned. This is a proposal for first a non-major comprehensive plan amendment to amend the Santan Valley Special Area Plan from suburban neighborhood to special district, as well as a rezoning proposal for a total of 256.1 acres. And lastly, a planned area development to allow deviations from development standard. The overall size of the total property is approximately 389 acres. This is located southeast of East Hunt Highway and North Gansel Road. Owner is Arizona State Land Department. Alex Stedman and Carolyn Oberholzer are here to represent the owner. So this gives you the overall location here in the Santan Valley area. And clicker's not responding, so if you can advance it, thanks. So this is the zoning map, the overall case map showing the project area. Next, there we go. Aerial map of the property. As you can see, it's vacant, maybe recently, farmed. So existing land use is suburban neighborhood, and then proposed is, as mentioned earlier, special district. This shows you the 600-foot mail-out radius and the proposed land use concept. So with this here, this is the meat and potatoes essentially of what's being proposed here. And I'll let the applicant further discuss this. It's more cut and dry in the yellow portions. It's a little bit, it's the western portion there, the orange and the pink are intended to allow for, unknown end users at this time. So there's a good amount of flexibility envisioned in this. So this is the proposed land use concept. And then development standards for the R7 component. development standards for MR. Utilities. And looking north from the project area to the south, you can see it's vacant. And to the east, where it looks like it was fairly recently farmed. And then to the west, also vacant. So items of consideration, location south of approved Santan Valley Urban Core. Opens up locked land located centrally in Santan Valley, sitting vacant, surrounded by fast developing areas. And assist the parallel process to rezone R7, MR, and C3. So land use aligns with Santan Valley Special Area Plan in that it preserves and enhances existing neighborhood character, fosters more housing diversity, broadens economic opportunity, and improves transportation systems. Rezone would allow opportunities to include diverse array of residential uses, balanced growth. What happened there? Okay, and items of consideration, development plan, a formal site plan plat shall be required to establish specific residential and commercial. C3 development standards per the code, and a PAD allow flexibility once again. No letters of opposition were received at least at the time of the creation of the original report. So stipulations as presented in your staff report, no stipulations for the first case, one for the rezone request, and then 15 stipulations for the PAD question. And so staff would be happy to entertain any questions the commissioners may have.
Any questions for the staff? Hearing none, I'll bring the applicant up.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and members of the commission. Thank you for having us back and off of a long holiday weekend. Nice to be here. My name is Alex Stedman. I'm with RVI Planning and Landscape Architecture. Glenn did a great job of kind of covering the essence of the request, but I'm going to go through it in a little bit more. But in light of a heavy agenda this morning, I may skip past a couple of things. It's just not to be redundant. But we do have a presentation up, and so if we could get that loaded up, that'd be great.
Maybe before that, there's one more slide I just learned of that has the amended stipulations. So if we can go to that next slide. There we go. So this is amendment stipulation 5, and I believe the next one will have the other, and to stipulation 7. So that's all.
Yeah, and I do have this as part of my presentation as well. I'll go through it in a little bit more detail. Okay, well, so before we get started with the request, I just wanted to kind of remind the commission that this is a piece of state land, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about the differences between private and state land before we got into the request. Glenn, can I use that clicker?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so what is state trust land? Just a quick overview here. It's land that was granted to the state from the federal government about the time of incorporation or creation of the state. And so it's been around for a long time. And the proceeds of state land sales go to a handful of beneficiaries. So those beneficiaries include primarily K-8 education, building school facilities, but they also go to universities, they go to the School for the Blind and Deaf, and a handful of other beneficiaries of that type. Let me skip past, whoops, looks like we're going backwards. Okay, so our site here outlined in yellow, in blue, and blue represents state land. So along the Hunt Highway corridor, and frankly, a lot of Pinal County is state trust land. So we're probably not the first and we won't be the last, but you can see the amount of state land, not just for us, but to our north, to our west, and in the region in general. So quite a bit out there. The white and gray areas represent private land. Okay. So the purpose of state trust land, this slide here clears up some common misconceptions about state trust land. It's not public land. It's more akin to private property in the way that it's handled. And up until recently, this site was leased for agricultural purposes. So now it's in a transition period. The way that state land is disposed of is through public auction. And so we anticipate an auction on a portion of the property, and I'll define that for you here in a minute. But it goes through a public auction process to the highest bidder. D.R. Horton is my client on this. They are the applicant, but they don't own the property yet. We expect an auction to be held probably in Q1 of next year for a majority of the property. Okay, so let's get to the property itself. Glenn kind of set it up already. 389 acres adjacent to Hunt Highway, just south of Judd Road. We do have the Copper Basin community to our south and to our east that kind of wraps around us. And then Johnson Ranch off to the west a little bit on the other side of Hunt Highway. We do have a number of schools. Those are outlined in blue, K-8 schools around us. As well as Poston Butte, which is up to the north, and the Central Arizona College, which is also kind of up about a mile north of the property. There is a rural metro fire station up Hunt Highway, probably about half a mile to the northwest. Okay, and this is where I'd be happy to slow down if you need me to, but I can go through this pretty quickly as Glenn kind of covered this already. This is the comprehensive plan request. So taking it from the current designation of suburban, changing it to the special use, state land special use designation in green there, which provides the state with the flexibility that it requires. And then existing zoning on this site is the GR designation. We also, you can see to the north and to the west, that same zoning designation. It's to the south there in Copper Basin that you do have some residential and commercial uses outlined. You see the different colors there. Okay, and then there's our proposed zoning, and we have 3 different areas within the site. A, B, we're calling them A, B, and C, working from right to left there. And I'll cover those in more detail here in just a second. Okay, and then here's our overall land use plan put together. Okay, so let's talk about planning area A, which is that yellow area. This is an area that's designated for single family residential uses only. Our maximum density on this portion of the property would be about 4.5 dwelling units to the acre. So typical with single family detached uses. Our smallest lot that we're requesting in there would be a 40 wide lot, but we are self-limiting the amount of that lot size. There's a requirement to have at least 3 different lot sizes, substantially different lot sizes on the property. And it's a maximum of 30% of the units could be allowed to be that smallest 40 wide lot. But the reason we've positioned the single family on this portion of the property is to give those protections or those transitions to Copper Basin to our west and to our east. One of the things that's kind of harder to see at this scale is that we do have some open space buffers along the Copper Basin side to our south. There's a sewer easement and sewer line along our eastern edge that creates a buffer as well. So there is some setback between existing homes and these proposed single family homes. Okay, area B here, which again is not adjacent to the existing single family, and that's intentional. This would allow some flexibility of residential uses in here. So we are requesting the MR district here, but it would allow for single family uses in combination with mixed dwelling, kind of higher density, not apartments. And we've limited, so this would be townhomes, villas, duplexes, that carrier is kind of the next density level up from single family residential. We would cap the density on this parcel at 6 dwelling units to the acre, maximum building height of 30 feet. So that's 2-story. And then again, we would see the blend of residential uses happening in parcel B. And the reason that we've gone from single family on A now to B, I'll show you C in a second, is again, we're trying to transition this density. C allows for some higher intensity uses. It's right adjacent to Hunt Highway, so it's got great access. It's got great potential for those higher intensity uses. It accommodates the traffic a little bit better. We would be zoning this to a base district of C3. And then with some supplementary districts of office, so O2, MR, MD, it would even allow for single family residential at R7. The maximum density on this parcel is 12 dwelling units to the acre. So, which is, and we've established a requirement on this thing that a minimum of 25% of the area you see in red on this would be non-residential uses. So again, commercial and office. So we think it's a great site for non-residential uses, but the state is needing the flexibility here just because there are some issues associated with this parcel in terms of service right now. It is not within the EPCOR service area, and that's a process that needs to be played out. So I spoke earlier about a portion of the property going to auction in the near term, and then there's a portion that would be auctioned off later on. So the area not highlighted, A and B on this slide here, that would be coming to auction here early next year. It's undetermined because of that. The water provider hasn't been established on area C. We don't know when that auction will be. So that's a little further into the future, but we're setting it up to allow for some flexibility of land uses there. Okay. Okay, so that's the entire property put together here. So it's really a mixed use community if you think about everything from single family all the way up to that C3 commercial. What we're hoping to do is provide some connectivity and some internal capture where our residents can shop and maybe even work within this larger community, this 389-acre property as it develops. Okay, and I kind of beat myself to the punch, but there are the 2 phases sort of highlighted. So 64 acres in phase 2, and then 324 acres on phase 1 in the blue. Okay, and Glenn started to go through this. I'll go through this in a little bit more detail, but our stipulation requests, and these are not major changes, and we think they're kind of common sense, but the stipulation was essentially that as the property begins to develop, that right-of-way would be dedicated for Hunt Highway. That makes sense. But because we're phasing the property and Hunt Highway is associated with that area C, all we're asking is a slight tweak to the language here to introduce that all those dedications for Hunt Highway right-of-way would occur in association with the area C development, coming forward with a plat. So it's just a clarification. It's not trying to remove a requirement necessarily. Okay, and then a change to stip 7, and again we think this is the existing language. What I've highlighted in bold here is new language, but as the area A and B begins to develop, Tourmaline Road runs right through the middle, north-south, right through the middle of that area. And let me go back a couple slides so we can look at the site plan, this slide here. So right now, where you see that roadway connect about halfway across the southern property line there, Tourmaline Road goes straight north-south today. With the development proposal, we'd like to bifurcate and split that roadway, and we think that'll just make traffic flow a little bit better, introduce a couple more intersections, and allow the circulation within the community to work a little bit better. So in abandoning Tourmaline Road with these new alignments here, we just need some flexibility. Right now, the stipulation is worded in a way that we would not be able to shut down Tourmaline Road at all. And while that's kind of our intent too, is to keep traffic moving, especially for residents already in the area that use Tourmaline Road, from time to time, we're going to need some flexibility for infrastructure tie-in, whether it's water, sewer, or street improvements as the community's development. We don't think that those closures will last very long. We're probably talking about days, maybe a week. But what we would do is provide a sufficient advance notice to the county. We'd probably put up some signage out there on the site. So again, it won't be months long, this protracted thing. This will be quick, but the language was so definitive. It was saying the road cannot be closed at any time. We just would like to sort of flex that a little bit. So that would be our request there for clarification on the STIP language. And that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission has.
Any questions for the applicant? Go ahead, Commissioner Mooney. Welcome back to you.
So what if, and I'm new to this, so I apologize. What if the sale doesn't go through, you're not the winning bidder? How does that affect if we go through and make all these changes? Maybe that's for the staff and county.
Was the zoning and the land use goes with the ownership. So the state is the applicant. So the state is seeking the zoning application,
Okay.
not D.R. Horton. D.R. Horton may be one prospective buyer. So there could be other buyers.
Gotcha. Okay.
So they've agreed to advance the planning and entitlement work for the state. And if they're the successful bidder, I think they get reimbursed. If not, then the next bidder would have to pay for it.
All right. Thank you for that clarification. On the duplexes, townhouses, you said 6 per acre. So 6 duplexes. So technically 12 families, 12 houses, even though.
Yeah, Chair and Commissioner Mooney. So 6 is actually pretty low, and to a product of that type, duplex, townhomes, those develop probably about 10 dwelling units to the acre. So when I say 6 dwelling units to the acre, we're talking about across that entire orange area. But what it means is that the entirety of that orange won't be able to develop because the density would be too high if it were all that one type. So what we envision here is really a mix of single family and then some allowance for townhome, villas, that lower density multifamily attached.
Okay. Then the next section had 12 units per acre. Was that also just residential homes or also mixed use with townhomes, villas?
Yeah, Chair and Commissioner Mooney, it'll be a lot of different types. In fact, it allows for all types of residential, including multifamily in there. But in the same sense that we just spoke about B, it can't all be apartments, for example. A small portion could be, because apartments will typically be 20 to 25 dwelling units to the acre. So all of that could be on C. but you're going to hit a cap at some point. And there are a maximum number of units that we've set for Area C in addition to the densities. So there will be limitations on higher density product types in that sense, that we've restrained ourselves a little bit. And that will promote those alternative uses like non-residential uses, commercial and office.
Okay. And I
Go.
I just got two more questions. Section A and B will be auctioned next year, but Section C, you're not sure. What is the problem with EPCOR? You're just trying to negotiate with them still, or there isn't anything really? I mean, you're looking at a piece of land that has no water, so I'm just wondering why that's here today.
Yeah, it's a great question. We haven't even started those conversations yet. But the short answer is the areas A and B appeal to the D.R. Hortons of the world and maybe other bidders and builders out there. That's where the interest is in the near term. So the state has made a decision to bifurcate that property in that auction process. And another builder or commercial developer, will take an interest in Area C once the water situation is kind of straightened out and we have a designated provider on the property.
And then my last question is for the county. Do you have any concerns with the road closures? I just know that we've had a lot of those with a lot of the construction going around. So does the county have any concerns with any of that?
We don't have the benefit of engineering here right now, but from looking at those stipulations, the one ultimately leaves engineering to make the call on that road closure issue. The other one, I think, maintains the spirit of that stipulation. So I didn't see any issues with either, in my opinion.
Okay, Tourmaline's quite a busy road, so.
Yeah, Commissioner
Yes.
Mooney, I think typically for fire purposes, we need to maintain 2 access points at all times. So that'll probably need to be done regardless of how they phase the project. We'll need to have 2 access points.
Okay.
Agree with that. I just wanted to add one point of clarification. We had talked with the county engineer, Chris Wanamaker, a number of weeks ago, specifically about this stipulation. And we had gotten some agreement, some head nod from him that this was an acceptable change to the language.
And you had said a day or 2 or maybe a week. So would you try and coordinate the different things that you wanted to do so that I just know that other areas, I live in Santan, in case you couldn't tell.
Yeah, no, I get it.
And deal with those issues a lot. And so just trying to coordinate it for the least amount of time that it would have to be closed. I mean,
I think that would be our objective. Given the stipulation language that we're still subject to here, even with the change, it would incentivize us to try to couple some of these improvements.
all right, thank you. I'm done.
I have just one question. It's a simple one. What municipality do you anticipate will annex this project?
We believe, Chairman and Commissioner Ponzo, we believe that this will stay in the county. We're not anticipating an annexation at this time.
Well, somebody's going to get to own it sooner or later.
It could be.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Smith.
That could be incorporation. We don't know yet.
We'll know more in a month or 2.
Yes, possibly. Commissioner Mooney kind of had the question I had on C. You haven't had any talks with EPCOR, it sounds like, and you may not even be the ultimate developer on it.
Right.
So it could be somebody else. I think they're waiting probably because there's no water entitlements on it. So they probably have to get a will serve and 100-year water supply for that property. So that theoretically could sit there for a while. That would be kind of up to EPCOR and the developer. So sorry, I come from the water utility background, so I understand that part of it. On B, are those going to be for rent or sell? I'm just curious.
Yeah,
For
Commissioner Smith,
townhomes and villas.
we anticipate it could be both. it could be both. The way that our proposal is drafted, they could be detached multifamily, but they also could be for sale townhomes and villas. So
Okay. Not determined yet, but.
not determined yet.
Okay, but needing the zoning to be able to make that determination.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Stafford seem to be getting some feedback on Commissioner Stepp's mic. Maybe you hum when you talk. I don't know. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Hartman.
Thank you, Chairman. A quick question, and I'm sorry if I missed it before, but there's no opposition, which is good to see, refreshing. And I'm just curious on the east, on the south sides, what's the spacing there on A1 and A3 between the existing homes of Copper Basin
Oh,
and your proposed?
yeah, Commissioner Hartman, good question. Let me see, I thought I had written this down here. Let me see if I can find it.
Because I see the tree lines and the large blue line.
Yeah, Commissioner Hartman, there is an existing buffer there, and at a minimum, it's 30 feet wide. At a maximum, it extends up to 250 feet. So there's sort of this curvilinear edge to it, but it becomes significant. Even 30 feet is a decent setback.
Okay, thank you.
I do have another question. On the access, on between A and B, you have Tourmaline Road going north to south. Are these other roads going to Hunt Highway to Tourmaline and another one going up to Judd? Are those the access points?
Yes, correct.
Okay, just want to make sure, but we don't know when they'll be under construction for access, depending on phases.
Yeah, Commissioner Snap, we don't know at this point, but when you asked the question, it made me remember that we had conversations with the county about Tourmaline extending north even of our property and how that comes back to its current alignment north of us. And so it kind of arcs back. Imagine that mirroring up top and coming back to its midsection alignment.
Okay.
So that will connect. That's the point.
I just kind of agree with county that, for fire access points, as this is under development, if Tourmaline's closed, you need to have another access point.
The conversations that we'll have with county staff when we go. We agree.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Scott.
I was looking through your proposal here, and I did read it cover to cover. And I noticed that you had a neighborhood meeting, which is great.
Yes.
Within the 5 mile requirement. My question is, why would you have that meeting at 5 o'clock in the afternoon? And that's when most people get off work. And I'd assume that some of those people that might want to attend that meeting maybe work in Chandler or Gilbert or AJ or someplace like that. And given the known traffic, going through Queen Creek and Santan Valley, why did you schedule it when maybe only a few people could attend?
Yeah, Commissioner Scott, that is a fair question, and it wasn't our intent to try to cut people out of the process. There was a notification letter that went out explaining the request, and it gave a couple of avenues for contacting us if there were concerns. And so whether that was by email, by phone, or by letter, so if they couldn't make the neighborhood meeting, but again, it wasn't our objective to.
I just find that, a lot of people, if I would have read that and I had a 45-minute commute, I knew I wasn't going to make it. I'm just not going to show up. But I think it's really important that we give citizens adequate time to meet their schedules, so to speak, than your schedule, and make these times available where they can come in and get educated on this project and maybe have, more questions that can be directed to a person and not an email. Personal opinion. And then on table 6, this is a modified MR development standards. Did you cover this in your presentation?
No, but we can go back to that. I think it was in the staff presentation. Could we bring that up again, please? Okay, let me go back a few slides here. Just
Yeah, that's it. That'll do it. All right, one of my questions is maximum building height. Looks like the existing code is 36 feet, and you're proposing 52 feet or up to 52 feet. Where would those, I guess those would be apartments, or what are those?
Yeah, Commissioner Scott, that's correct. And those would be adjacent to Hunt Highway. So these standards would not apply to development in areas A and B where they're closer to the existing community.
So that's in the portion that doesn't have the 100-year certificate of water, right?
That's correct.
How many of these structures will there be that are 4 stories?
We don't, Commissioner Scott, we don't know at this point. We do, okay, so on this table here, this is our proposed land use concept. Area C would allow up to 777 residential units. Now, we don't know if those are all of one type or another. It could be a blend of residential densities and uses, but that would be a cap within Area C.
Yeah, it's just kind of hard to vote on something that's going to be a what if. You know what? 52 feet, that's pretty high, isn't it?
That's about a 4-story building, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
How many 4-story buildings are within 3 miles of there?
None yet.
Okay, all right.
Is that it?
No, I was just looking through the existing development standards compared on other charts of what you're proposing. And what you're proposing is significantly less than the current or existing standards. Why is that?
Commissioner Scott, what we're trying to do here for residential uses is provide a diversity of housing types here. So with our client, D.R. Horton, they're trying to offer multiple ranges of single family uses as well as non-single family attached uses like the villas, like the townhomes, attached or detached multifamily. So we're trying to cover a lot of things and provide housing options for the greater number of folks out there.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I can also understand that you get more units per acre, which is a more valuable development. But in some cases, when we get our lots too small and too tiny, then it's more like a cookie cutter type of development. It doesn't really have much character. I think that's all the questions I have. I might have some more.
Commissioner Money.
I don't even think we have 3-story buildings in Santan Valley yet. So 4 stories, not a big fan. And the side yards, this may be for county, I believe those side yards and rear setbacks were now put to 5, and maybe Vice Chair Klob, on other cases I think we've discussed and had that.
It's on my list.
Okay, that was your question. Okay. Those are my 2. I'm just, 4 stories. I missed that. Thank you, Commissioner Scott. I missed that because 3 stories aren't even in Santan yet. We really try and save what views are left with I've been here 16 years and there was a lot of vacant land back then and people are losing their views. And so I know that's close to Hunt Highway, but it's just a concern of mine. Thanks.
Any other questions for the applicant? I have a few. Alex, thank you for your presentation and your candor, answering the questions so far. bring up the first one as we have the chart on the screen here. As a design professional, I run into this on a regular basis, 20 years after the fact, when people want to put in something in their backyard and there's a 3-foot or a 4-foot setback and the building code says anything less than 5 feet has to be fire rated, and my clients get mad at me when their structure becomes 25–30% more expensive. I hate being the bad guy in 20 years. Hopefully I'm not practicing in 20 years, but that being said, I would really, push back on this on a regular basis because it comes through. It's in our code. I get it. That we can change, if we could change all of the 4-foot side and rear yard setbacks for any structure, be it primary or accessory building, change that to 5 feet.
It's 5 feet, yes.
Okay.
Sure, it is 5 feet. I think are we looking, if we're looking at the same thing here, minimum side setback, we're requesting.
On the detached accessory buildings,
Yes.
you'll see, minimum distance to side and rear, 4 feet.
Oh, there at the bottom.
Yeah, at the
Right.
bottom.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that change to 5. I think it just aligns with the building codes, makes things a lot easier in the future.
I think we'd be fine with that.
Okay. One of my concerns with a lot of these developments, and I appreciate what you said about, creating this diversity. As so many of these developments, as they're coming into Pinal County, we're losing the diversity of, because there's so much focus right now politically and as a country on affordable housing and creating small, more affordable lots. And I support that 100%. But I don't think it needs to be the only thing that we do. And there needs to be housing in all of these communities for that next level move up, for the professionals that are coming in here. There are, maybe a little higher income individuals that want to live out in this area. I think we're losing a lot of that housing stock. The developers are so laser focused on small lot builds that they're losing the focus on larger lots, and we're seeing it across the county. And so, whereas I appreciate having the maximum number of lots available, I am concerned that we're losing that diversity and the focus, albeit 40%. Or 30%, 40%, whatever it was. But then we kind of step up, okay, well, whatever's the next size up, and that's what we focus on. And the bulk of it becomes this, and there's such a small piece that's left over that either A, it goes undeveloped because it's such a small piece and nobody wants to come in with large lot development or larger lot, production development. It loses its enticing, aspect. And so I'm really concerned is kind of as we move forward with these developments, especially as open-ended like this, where, we don't have a site plan, we have nothing to judge anything on. We just have a maximum number of lots, and however that mix happens, it's how it happens. I really want to make sure that we're getting that diversity that these communities need. We need workforce housing, but we also need housing for the business owners and the doctors and the lawyers and so on and so forth that these communities need and will need in the future. And we're accommodating that as well. Regarding the 2 steps, the changes to the 2 stipulations, if we can pull those up. So number 5, I think I had, so my concern with number 5 is I was here I was designing production homes in 2004, 2005, 2006, and then I saw what happened in 2008, 9, 10, and so on. And as we are in uncertain times today, my concern is allowing a stipulation like this that says, we already know that there's some entitlement challenges with parcel A. Logistically, it'll probably happen. I get it. But on the flip side, if it doesn't, and that never develops, so now we have this, what do we have, 2,000 homes or whatever it is, that now don't get the benefit of a Hunt Highway development because A never got developed. And we've now penalized these people because the water access couldn't be, or we went into a recession, or, I mean, there's a lot of what ifs, and I get that, but I kind of have a little bit of a hard time with this one since the bulk of the project is going to be affected the most by whether this gets developed or not. And then putting it off to the back end gives me a little bit of heartache. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. And it is not our intent to, again, to weasel out of any improvements here. I think it was the logistics of bringing kind of a disassociated right-of-way dedication from the piece that will go to auction here in the near term. And so there was a complexity associated with that. But the improvements on Hunt Highway are likely, the existing improvements can handle the traffic that the initial auction will bring to additional traffic on Hunt Highway. I don't think I said that very clearly, and so we believe that when Area C comes on board, that will bring a higher level of traffic, and that would be the right time to not only make the dedication of right of way, but the improvements that would be associated with that portion of the project.
And I'm going to come back on staff on this one. What if, in addition to the stipulation, there was some type of timeline that, if not done in 1 year, 2 years, whatever, I mean, whatever, should the dais, decide that would be a stipulation they would entertain. Is that something that can be done on the staff side? Is it?
Yeah, Vice Chair, I noticed the attorney just popped up right away as soon as you said that. Yeah, you can put performance standards on roads, and that's a permissible thing. It just, the market, as you know, developers with markets, they don't know what the future will bring, so they don't want to obligate something in the future. You could do it based upon not time, but you could do it based upon number of homes is another way to do it, another way to approach a performance standard, as opposed to time, because that's somewhat arbitrary, especially with a market, but homes might do it.
Mr. Vice Chair, could I
Yes.
add? For your records, and I did sign in earlier, thank you. Carolyn Oberholzer with Bergen Frakes, Smalley and Oberholzer, 4343 East Camelback. I am outside land use counsel for the Arizona State Land Department. And one of the tricky things about the land department is all of the property must be acquired. It is not able to give land away. So right-of-way has to be purchased. We are not able to commit to timeframes for dedications because the state land department has no authority to give right-of-way away. So this stipulation, I think, is the clarification was being made or proposed by the applicant team, being the home builders, because the auction will absolutely be for parcels A and B. But as we've discussed, Area C has no services, so that's going to be a longer time frame. But it is the connection point to Hunt Highway. And so the land department wanted to make sure that it was included in a comprehensive master plan for circulation purposes so that everybody can plan for these routes. But when these properties come through to plat, which would be the next step after the auction, the successful bidders will come and they'll do their tentative plat. That's going to carry with it the requirement for an updated traffic study. That is when you'll have the lotting. That is when you'll have the traffic patterns. And that is when county staff will say, these are the right-of-way dedications. This is the timing of the signals. And so what this is meant to do is, because areas A and B are different and separate physically and are not part of the auction, those builders would not be able to time the dedication of this road because it's adjacent to parcel C. And parcel C is, when that develops, that property would be dedicating that adjacent right-of-way. However, the road exists. I think there's not a concern about there being sufficient right-of-way currently for Hunt Highway. Were there some situation where the county needs that right-of-way in advance of these auctions, then there is that right-of-way acquisition process with the state land department that the county goes through in any circumstance where they need a road through state land property. So long-winded answer just to explain the dynamic of this does not lend itself well to a time stipulation. And that's why we connected it to a physical property. But none of this changes the requirement for, in a traffic study going along with these plats, if that roadway is a requirement of that, then they're going to have to figure that out and time that, and that'll have to be covered in that plat application.
So thank you for that explanation. And with that in mind, instead of tying it to a timeline, what about tying it to number of lots sold, percentage of development, something along those lines?
Well, and that's going to be what this traffic study would do. It was create a recommendation that the county would then confirm in stipulations on the plat cases, that once these things happen, that is when those things are triggered. At zoning, where we aren't really sure where everything is going to go, we're not even sure we're going to get to that ultimate lot count. Many times these projects don't develop at that ultimate lot. We're in a blind spot on how this is going to develop. And it's really at that plat process where you're going to have the information so that you can adequately say, okay, this is when you're going to need that. And so at that point, that is when the county would stipulate to those requirements. We just don't have the benefit of enough information at zoning because we don't have the necessary triggers yet. We don't know what the density on those parcel B would be. It's very likely that parcel B would be predominantly single family. So it's just, again, all of the guardrails are in place with the county's engineering standards and with their process and with the engineering that has to be done at plat. We just are highlighting this now because, again, it's that physical separation to Hunt Highway that these properties wouldn't have. So normally when a landowner acquires the property, they're able to say, yes, and I will give you this now. But that land is separate. If that land is required as a part of those improvements, then they will have to acquire that land from the land department if it hasn't already been dedicated to the county. It may very well be by that point. This is just a timing of dedication requirement. This isn't a timing of improvement.
Can I interject something real quick? Can we pull up the map that has the 3 distinct parcels with the roads in it? Correct me if I'm wrong. Did the road that go from Tourmaline to Hunt Highway, is that not in parcel B? At the very southern end? Or does it cross over?
It clips parcel C, and that is going to be included within the auction parcel. That right of way is going to go with the auction property.
But in
Which auction? Sorry.
The auction for A and B. That's a great clarification. Sorry. Thank you, Vice Chair and Commissioners. Yes, so that
those 2
roadway,
parcels will be auctioned together.
correct. A and B are going in one auction.
So then that's when the right-of-ways and stuff will be entertained with B and C.
So the auction for A and B will come with right-of-way dedication requirements. So the ultimate purchaser will be buying all of the land necessary to then dedicate to the county for those parcels. And that is why that connection point through C is there.
I could just see where some of the heartburn could be that if B developed and C stood there for a long time and traffic, that road was made, then we're putting a lot of traffic onto Hunt Highway without C being auctioned. But if they're together, I get that.
Well, and so again, this stipulation is just with regard to the width of the dedication. There is Hunt Highway right-of-way. There's the road there now. So this does not presume that improvements couldn't be made within the existing. If there are additional that are necessary, then yes, that would have to be figured out. But the way that it's configured right now, there shouldn't need to be any additional right-of-way dedications or improvements that would be beyond the existing improvements onto Hunt Highway in parcels A and B. So, but again, when it comes through in plat, this is going to be vetted and determined through the county's review process and the engineering department and staff. So, and with regard to what is platted, because what we've talked about density ranges, again, these are just setting, the outer limits of what is possible here. And it is quite likely that it would not even develop as densely as it would be entitled to be developed.
Yeah, and I get that. It helps for state land to be able to sell if there's already these type of entitlements on, or these, sorry, my beautiful voice. So it helps for the sale of the land when state land is involved and they know that there's going to be something of a determination.
That's correct.
It just makes sense now that if A is going to be sold separately and B and C are going to be together, then that's when the roadway, and I see what's going on.
Let me clarify. It's A and B that are going together.
Well, A and B.
Yes, correct. A and B are one development parcel that will be auctioned together. In fact, that auction was scheduled last year and it was postponed so that this process could proceed. So it is ready. Once the entitlement package is approved for this, the land department is prepared to schedule the auction. But because of the process that's required prior to that with regard to notifications, that's why Alex mentioned Q1 of next year. That's when it's probably going to go. But it's A and B together that are going together, but with the extension out to Hunt Highway that clips the bottom of C. That's included within the auction.
And then, so I see where Vice Chair Klobb is having the issue because we're putting traffic now on
Yes.
to Hunt Highway from that development, and we don't know when C will ever be sold or developed. So I get both sides here.
Correct. Yes, this would just be dealing with that frontage of Hunt Highway along C.
Okay.
That's just that frontage, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
That's where my issue is coming in is if this becomes, for whatever reason, a zombie site, then it never gets developed, and the 2,000 home sites, essentially 4,000 people driving, are not getting the benefit of updated roadway until such time in the future. You would hope that the commercial development would come in quickly, but we've all seen in Santan Valley, I'm in the Maricopa side, where commercial sites sit. We have sites that have sat, potentially great sites, sat for 20 years and not developed. And this is my concern with this area. And how do we get, what the bulk of this community is going to need? And some could argue it's a bit unfair to put this all onto the future owner of Lot C, but that's not our issue. Because we have two things happening here. We have all this traffic coming onto Judd and Gansel Road, in addition to going onto Hunt Highway, and I think my personal opinion is I think we need to work on some type of, be it time, be it percentage of development, be it some type of caveat that pushes back on whoever picks up A and B, knows that, hey, if C never happens, at some point you are going to be responsible for developing this and making it happen. And I'd be open to, staff wants to chime in a little bit to kind of help move this along, but
We have stipulation 9 in the case, which might be beneficial to bring up on the screen. I don't know. Glenn, do you have the full set of stipulations in here or just the staff report?
I do have it in the staff report, so.
Okay, in the staff report, you have stipulation 9, which is again I don't have it up on the screen, but I can read it. And this is the traffic impact analysis that basically trumps everything else. And this is a traffic impact analysis or traffic impact statement will be required to be submitted to the county engineer at the time of tentative plat or site plan submittal for review and approval. All peripheral road and infrastructure improvements shall be per the approved traffic impact analysis to mitigate impacts on all surrounding roadways to be completed at developer's cost. These may include construction of acceleration and deceleration lanes, left turn pockets, traffic signals, or other public improvements as approved by the county engineer. The TIA shall be in accordance with the current Pinal County TIA guidelines and procedures and shall be approved prior to the tentative plat approval. So when the tentative plat comes to you, there will be a traffic study that is required per this stipulation to come with it. And if that study recommends that that dedication happen, then that developer if that land is not already dedicated, and again, nothing about this limits the dedication of that land prior to, this is just the full 75-foot half street of Hunt Highway dedication that we're talking about, as the outside point, to your point about timing, the outside point would be when Area C is included within a final plat. But none of this, if this is a requirement of the development of A and B, then the plat stipulation would be for that dedication to occur on the schedule that you're trying to articulate at this point. So I just bring this up to say that this stipulation on the zoning is what will secure the county's ability to time that improvement, even if it's off-site. It's outside of the boundary of the property to that development. So at that time, again, if it's not already dedicated, then that is what would trigger the requirement for that improvement with A and B. So it's not like the county would be, the future residents would be in a situation where they weren't able to access that improvement. That improvement would have to precede the development.
Okay, I guess part of me then comes back to, even with that in mind, and from a legal standpoint, how do you force a future owner, possibly even the state, if this doesn't sell at auction for whatever reason, to rededicate that land, even even if a traffic study does warrant it, and if it didn't sell at auction, then I mean, there's this whole can of worms that happens here.
It is, but we have some helpful things in the toolbox. There is a statute that, in the very unique situation, allows the state land department to tie the dedication of right-of-way for off-site land to an auction if the property is zoned. That is a state statute that only allows that scenario if the property adjacent to it that is going to trigger that development is zoned. So that's one of the important reasons to include Area C in the zoning package, is so that the state land department does have the ability to make future purchasers of the property, so that the public bidding process will have to acquire that right-of-way. And so, that will enable them to then dedicate that right-of-way to the county. So there is a mechanism already in place to allow this, so that if parcel A and B owners need that land, the state has the process in place to allow it if Area C adjacent to it is also zoned with it. So that's one of the important reasons of keeping Area C in this, even though we're just not quite sure what's going to happen with the infrastructure with EPCOR. But if it does not sell at auction, then it's not developing, right? That is the only way the property will ever develop, is if it's sold at auction. And so there wouldn't be any traffic in that event to handle if it's not sold at auction. But this process does allow for the dedication of that land to be attached to the A and B parcels.
Okay.
It's a unique situation of state trust land and statutes, but it is all of the tools to require this are there. It would not be a situation where it is inaccessible to the county or the developer to get at that land if they need it to be improved to handle the traffic from the development.
Okay, thank you. We have step 7 up. I'm always concerned when there's vague terminology in stipulations, and I get why we need it. This one says, we'll let county engineering be provided with sufficient advance notice. What does that mean? Is that 24 hours? Is that 30 days? Is that, and that's the normal process.
Okay. Yeah, I'm hearing from my client, Vice Chair. It's a normal process. So it would be we would identify some of these things, I think, during the construction document, preparing the plans. We would identify some of these issues. We could put the county on notice that, we anticipate these things, but it won't be a day of, it won't be a day before. That's not what I think I'm hearing. I think I'm hearing there's going, I'm going to use vague terminology again, but there's going to be sufficient heads up on this before this happens. And I don't know if we can months.
Okay. I like that answer.
Okay, I do too.
With that in mind, I just had another case like this, where there's, potentially, single point of access, for emergency vehicles, and there's temporary roads. There's lots of ways to accommodate this. It gets messy. But I think it's important to maintain 2 points of access at any given time, especially if we're dealing with, we have people living in this community. I mean, if the road goes in, there's nobody living there, then no harm, no foul. But if we have 500 home sites that have been developed and now we want to block, Kremlin Road, because we got to bring the sewer line across, and all these people are used to using it, that's a bigger challenge, and we block it from emergency access for those people. So I actually would like to see maybe an amended STIP to allow for, in the event that there's a closure of it, because it's such a high traffic road, that there is 2 points of access at any given time for emergency.
Yeah, and Vice Chair, we share those concerns. Your concerns are our concerns as well. I wish I had a map up that showed the regional, but Tourmaline is not the only other secondary point of access for the existing community to the south for Copper Basin. So I think what we're talking about is probably preparing a little bit of a strategic plan with the county ahead of these closures, and with the fire involved as well, to say, look, do we have sufficient alternative access? Is this a safe condition? All of those things, and then determine our timelines for closure. I think we can work this out. It's not a cul-de-sac situation where people are trapped or have one alternative point of access.
Road, or is the language good that you think is there?
The fire code, I think, actually gets into that
Into the-
separation
got
between
Yeah.
access points and so on.
There are ways there are a couple of ways you can skin that cat, but but you want to give us a little bit of, I think the intent is two separate. We can put separate there.
Yeah. There's private fire lanes. There's all kinds of different ways to make it work, but I like that change.
Okay.
Mission is good. Any other thoughts on other changes to STIPs? I apologize. Do we want to change 5, leave it as it is?
I agree with removing, the area C. As it's been stated, they have to come back before us anyway, so let's just remove that for now. And, when it comes back before us, because that is a serious concern for Hunt Highway.
Changing 5 now, put the horse back in front of the cart.
Yeah, I would agree.
I agree.
Agreement to remove that, take out for area C.
Yes.
Yeah, good.
Yes.
Any other comments on this? I'm open to a motion. If not, Mr. Money.
So the first case, I move the Planning and Zoning Commission forward a recommendation of conditional approval for case PZPA-016-24 to the Board of Supervisors.
With zero stipulations.
Oh, zero stipulation, not listed.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Schnepp. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2. I have a motion. Commissioner Mooney.
I move the Planning and Zoning Commission forward a recommendation of conditional approval for case PZ-PD-018-24 to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the following 15 stipulations and 2 changes to the stipulations, one on 7A as amended that was read by Harvey, and number 5 removed for area C. And it's not a stipulation, but to change the 5-foot setback for rear and side yards in their chart.
Very good. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Hartman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. And we skipped over one, PZ 030-24 with its one stipulation. Do I have a motion on that one?
Oh, I'm so sorry. You're right. I'll make a motion.
Commissioner Mooney.
I move the Planning and Zoning Commission forward a recommendation of conditional approval for PZ-030-24 to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the following one stipulation.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Hartman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Very good. Thank you, guys. With that one, we'll move on to PZ-08-25 and where these are. And PZ-PD-005-25 and SUP-006-25.
Good morning, Vice Chair, Commission members. My name is Valentin Panchenko. I'm planner for those 3 cases for the project Mitchell Trail Commercial. Those are 3 items. One is rezone from general rural to general commercial, C3, a PED overlay district, and special use permit to operate an outdoor storage facility for construction-related materials and vehicles. It's located to the northwest of the town of Florence, almost 2 miles to the east of intersection Highland Highway and East Arizona Farms Road. Its size is 9.94 acres, and the applicant is present here today. Here's a general location of the property. Here's a zoning map, vicinity map, aerial map, view of the property to the north and to the south, to the east and to the west, and the notice sign that was published for this public hearings. So the history of this subject property is pretty generic. It was GR since the beginning 1962. The surrounding areas more interesting because it's a mixed land use from rural residential to the south and to the east, and commercial and industrial to the west of the property. Property is currently undeveloped, and it's also located between 2 railroad lines, each 1.5 miles away and 2.5 miles away, respectively. That's can be important when someone would like to rezone to some industrial, and that location can be considered. In this case, it's rezoned for commercial C3. Here's a development plan for this proposal, and the plan provides the following general internal circulation layout with two entry points. There is public utility easement. There is a 40-foot right-of-way dedication along the frontage and a 10-foot landscape buffer around the perimeter of the site. Also, that buffer will provide visual screen from adjacent rural residential properties to the east that is already established, and there is no established residential to the south or to the north of this property. Also, to meet C3 development standards, the site will be enclosed with a 6-foot high solid masonry screening wall. There's a basic landscape map with green, that buffer I mentioned previously. With PD overlay district, even it's slightly less than 10 acres, which requirements for PD overlay district, it's 9.94 acres, but commission may decide to apply PD overlay district for smaller sizes parcels in case if it will be seemed suitable and reasonable. So talking about this PD overlay district, there are several PD overlay district to the west of this parcel that covers industrial and commercial areas. They were already approved for the smaller areas. And because this area also adjacent to rural residential areas, it seems reasonable to put PD overlay district rules and restriction to this area to limit only the proposed use. And in the PD book, applicant also provides a table with prohibited uses that are allowed for this zone. They're excluding such general uses as schools, hospital, medical cares, etc. And they are also making an extended list of storages and yards with more precise description of what they're going to put there, not just generic category as storage in general, but they're putting all of those detailed what will be put on that land, so commission can evaluate in details what is proposed by applicant to put on that land as a storage. But here is like, I need to admire that this is a good move from the applicant, because applicant doesn't want to hide something under the generic and general category of storage. They're fully describing what they're going to do there. Also, applicant does not provide any additional proposal for amending development standards in PD book, so all remaining development standards are the same as per code. There was no, as of today as well, there is no letter of support or opposition for this case. And SUP listed in PD book explaining in detail different types of storage facility it's aimed to serve. So I see that the application is full and complete. And regarding to special use permit, commission is obligated to identify factors for consideration when reviewing the special use permit request, and that is traffic condition, provision of services and utilities, the relation of the proposed special use and surrounding uses, which is more relevant to the mixed use zones to the west, and is fully provides transition from industrial uses to the west to residential to the south and to the east. There is one stipulation for rezone, 11 stipulation to PD book, and 8 stipulations to special use permit as presented in staff report. Any questions to the staff?
Any questions, staff? Commissioner Green.
Can you go back to page 16? Just a couple slides. One more.
Yeah.
So it's an outdoor, nope, you were right.
That one, that
Yeah,
one.
16. Outdoor storage facility for construction-related materials and vehicles. I guess I didn't see any shrubbery or anything for, was it just gonna, is there anything gonna be not protecting, but marking it, making it not viewable?
There will be 10-foot landscape buffer and 6-foot tall masonry wall.
Oh, okay. All right. I missed that thing. Thank you. That's it.
Any other questions? Staff? I had one, if we can go back to their overlay site plan, I think 1 or 2 pages, one more, that one. Any challenges? It looks like the access road being stabilized rock. Any challenges from the city or from the county? I mean, having trucks, potentially, larger trucks coming and going with only a stabilized base.
There was no comments from engineering regarding the access points at
Okay.
that point of time.
Very good. All right. Any other comments? With that, I'll let the applicant come up and speak.
And good morning, Acting Chair and Commissioners. Jason Sanks, I-Plan Consulting. There's no dogs on today's agenda.
Thank you.
I had to say it. I couldn't help myself. And thank you for your questions. I just wanted to reiterate the recap of the 3 cases in front of you: a zoning case, a PAD overlay case, and a SUP. They're all really related. Essentially, we're taking GR zoning and requesting C3 with the PAD. The entire intent of the PAD is to skinny down the use list and protect the GR zoning around it. So there's a very limited select use of uses with the intent of requiring an SUP for the outdoor storage uses. So with that, we have a companion SUP case to allow the outdoor storage of uses. Directly addressing the concern about buffering, in the packets, the latest version of the landscape plan does show a 10-foot landscape buffer on the full 360 of the project. What's interesting though is, with these kind of heavier commercial uses is that the 6-foot masonry wall will be on all 4 sides, so that'll fully screen the entire site. But along Mitchell Trail, the landscaping will be on the outside of the wall between the street and the wall, so it beautifies the streetscape. But on the rest of the project, the perimeter wall wraps the site, and then the 10 feet of landscaping with trees 30 feet on center will wrap the interior of the site, so that as those trees grow, they provide a visual screen, if you will, of whatever might be stored inside. So with the SUP and the narrative, the last submittal that we did kind of itemize out the types of things we envisioned being stored here. This would really be for, it could be storage of vehicles, it could be storage of landscape materials, it could be storage of landscape type of, not landscape, but construction types of equipment that you might see. What's interesting is that we did get one call from the public. Nobody came to the neighborhood meeting, but we did have somebody call once that sign went up. And the gentleman called me, and unfortunately it came from a private number and I couldn't call him back, but we did talk, and he was concerned that there were vehicles already parked on the site. And I didn't know that. And so I ran out there and I saw some cars parked on the site, and the adjacent business to our north has been growing, and that's a big piece of vacant property. So they're starting to park cars, and they were starting to spill over. And, so we went back out there, we talked to them, and they moved their vehicles off of my client's property. So there's more vehicles there. But you can see there, right there, actually, this is a perfect picture. It captures some of the work vehicles. That's the kind of equipment we hope to put behind a 6-foot block wall and landscaping with gates. And so the owners intend to lease out spaces within this project so that businesses like our neighbor, instead of using the property kind of casually, could perhaps lease from us and then store their stuff in a secure yard. So that's really why we're here today. That's kind of the high level overview. And I did want to note that we did have a property owner call. I think they're a neighbor that may live to the south. The north and southbound traffic on Mitchell Trail there's quite a few residents that come up to get to Arizona Farms Road on Mitchell Trail. So I imagine it's one of them. But like I said, I couldn't call them back because they called from a private number. And so we just moved the cars. Hopefully they're satisfied. If we can go to the aerial overshot, that would be great on the slides here. You can't see it, but north of this parcel, since the time of this aerial being taken, the business to the north, that's the one that's grown. There's I think they do earthwork and stuff. They do I'm not exactly sure, but there's a business to the north of this property. Then across the street, that's RV storage and mini storage. So there's already storage in the area. There's a lot of storage, as you can see, further to the north. Our hope is to add storage, but in a more responsible fashion by screening it and landscaping it. So I'm happy to answer questions. I hope I captured some of the concerns about the screening and the landscaping, but if you have additional questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for the applicant?
Question. On the site, is there going to be an office? Is there going to be employees on site during the day?
Through the chair, Commissioner Schnepp, actually, there's not a proposed office at this time. All of the reservation bookings would be done online, and then they would be provided secure access gate codes to get into the site.
On their own?
On
Okay.
their own. On their
So
own.
no need for utilities as far as water, sewer, stuff like that?
At this time, I'm not aware that we'll need to pull water or sewer, so the potential will be more of an outdoor storage use.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? This side? Mr. Scott?
I was just curious when you showed that loop around road and it was going to have gravel or something on it. And then the remainder of the parcel of land, right, the native soil, how are you going to keep the dust down from that?
Through the chair, Commissioner Scott, as part of the site plan review process, we do show it as native soil now, but it may need to be fully dust proof because this application, when the site plan review comes in, will be routed to air quality control, and they'll have comments on that, and they'll likely require us to put some sort of a stabilized surface down. We do have that up. This is actually the older landscape plan, although I think the newer one does reflect also that same terminology. But we are proposing a dust-proof roadway and dust-proof surfacing where there's going to be any activity so that we don't kick up the dirt.
Add to it. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, air quality control will provide comments at site plan review for sure.
Any other comments? I just had a couple. If we go to the slide just prior to this, it looks like we have, several lots, if you will. Will those be fenced off? The chain link fence between each unit or between each space? How is that to be divided?
Vice Chairman Klobb, at this time, I don't have any notations on the site plan showing fencing. I imagine if the developer comes in and they don't have someone that takes the whole interior of the site as a single leasee, and they do all of these lots, they're going to have to provide probably chain link subdividing fences within the lots to provide security for the items that are stored there between other leasees.
And with storage, equipment storage probably not as big of an issue, but material storage, that would be allowed. Is there the potential for future buildings on any of these parcels?
Yeah, Vice Chair, yes, there's potential for that. Within the PAD, there are a list of other possible uses. Although right now, there's no intention to build any buildings in there. It's just for storage. The zoning would allow the site to develop somewhat differently. So you've got the PAD case there, which is the base zoning, but there was the base entitlement. And then you have the companion SUP for the whole site, which is the development intent at this time. But if for some reason the SUP were to be removed in the future, the underlying zoning would allow other uses. But they would have to go through site plan review for everything. Now, there are items, especially some of the more high traffic, high volume commercial uses that are listed as prohibited. So even though those would be typical in C3, those would be prohibited on this site.
And just because SUPs are all fresh on our, does this carry with it a stipulation that carries with the land or carries with the ownership?
No, so through the chair, vice chair, the SUP is tied to the land on this one. This one's a somewhat different case than we've seen prior, where as typical, all SUPs will carry with the land.
Very good. Any other questions? Mr. Money.
I just have concerns with that SUP because with the comment, and it's not necessarily you, it's with the county. If it's tied to the land, but you have come and presented, and maybe the applicant is here with you as well, then I had it and it's like, yeah, you go ahead and you can run it for a while. And they just I know it can be taken away, but I just don't understand. The SUP should be, and this may be, I'm saying it to you, but to the county, it should not be, I mean, I understand it's tied to the land, but a stipulation that if whoever is running it is no longer running it, they must come and reapply for an SUP. It just does not make sense to me because it's just a special use permit for the person that asked for it. The land didn't come here and say, hey, I would like to be a storage place. That's just very concerning. Thank you for asking that clarity because I assumed it was like the last SUP.
And I kind of share that same concern. And Harvey, you want to add your 2 cents?
I understand the concern of the commission in terms of ownership, because not all operators are created equal, and you could get different levels of maintenance and certain things. If you'd like to add some kind of a stipulation regarding change of ownership, we can do that. But I mean, I'm just saying the code is pretty clear. Things run with the land rather than with the individual. So that we'll be doing that for a lot of SUPs unless we change the way we do business fundamentally.
Well, I think where some of this comes in is if it runs concurrent with the land through the sale, then it's no different than a rezoning or a PUD all by itself. And I think that, and maybe that even comes back to a second question, Jason, I'll come back to you on this one, is through a PUD, you can already establish these uses as part of your PUD or PUD approvals. Why then go and get a subsequent SUP?
If I may, Vice Chairman, I'd like to address 2 items if I can on this one. With this particular land use, or this particular case, the proposed developer and the owners are 2 different people perhaps. So we might have a change in like LLCs or trusts or corporations, but the idea with the SUP is that there's a lot of conditions of approval. There are items tied to the SUP, all of the exhibits that have been submitted. So whether John Smith or Jason Sanks develops this, they're still tied to exactly what's in front of you today, whether it's myself or somebody else. So you do have the benefit and security of all of the things that are here. It's not kind of a blank check SUP. It's an SUP very much tied to everything the county's already reviewed, all of the departments, what you're seeing, what's been presented to the public. So in case it does change hands and someone just runs off a cliff with something and does something that's not in keeping with what you've reviewed and approved, then the SUP could theoretically be revoked. So I would hesitate to put an ownership requirement on every SUP. That's just my advice, because what if I'm like one of my other clients has a RV storage facility and now his son is running it, and at some point it's probably going to transfer ownership from a father to a son. It's still the same family, but it's a different owner. Does he need to come back for, the same thing? Just to be careful with that. I get it in some unique circumstances, you might not want that to transfer because it's unique. But in many cases, a lot of these are just LLCs and corps that are transferring back and forth, which would be, I don't think that would be the intent. I think the intention is a developer that you see, that's presented to you and you trust, gets approved and then sells it to somebody who just makes a mess of the site and is a problem for the neighborhood. That would be something else. That's my long-winded approach to it. I'd just be careful when we start saying technically a change in ownership could be any variety of, businesses shifting ownership entities within their own structures.
True. And I had a discussion online with someone the other day, kind of not this case or anything related to this case, but on another case, in that sometimes the laws are written not necessarily for the ones that abide by the laws, they're written for the ones that don't. Yeah. And that's kind of what sometimes we have to look at, protecting the community from those that don't have the best of intentions.
Exactly. And I would say with this one, there are a number of things that are tied to this request, which include the landscape plan that showed the 10-foot perimeter, all the steps, including the 6-foot block wall. Mm-hmm. All of those things are tying into this, which whether I do it or somebody next to me does the same project. If they build exactly that and operate it as presented, then it's the same impact. So, I think I may have had a second point that you'd asked me another question. Now I forget what that was.
I'd ask why, instead of going the SUP.
Oh, why? Okay, thank you for that question, Vice Chair. That would be kind of a direction that we would need to sit down with the county on, and determining from a legal perspective, when we're looking at PADs versus SUPs, can we just make a more robust PAD that sweeps in all the contemplations that an SUP does? In the code, the SUPs specifically state you need to make all of these, the litany of findings. I'm not certain that the way the PAD is written, if it would still capture that meeting of findings requirement. I mean, I imagine at some level you could make the case for that, but to keep things, I know it doesn't seem simple to have a companion case, but I think the structure of the way the code is written, you've got the PAD bucket here, and then the SUP considerations bucket here. I thought, well, let's just do two cases because that's what we know, and that's how we've been doing business. But I think for the future, if they want to change the PAD code, they could make it different.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Mooney.
Can we add that to our list of things to discuss, just for clarity? You brought one other up, so I'd like to add that if we could, Harvey.
Yes, we struggle with this issue.
We don't need to discuss it now. If we
Yeah.
can just add it
We
to a
will.
future agenda for us to discuss, I would really
Okay.
appreciate.
I sure would like to. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Question, Vice Chair? More clarification from staff, either Valentin or Harvey, on the SUP being tied to the land. What is triggering the SUP to be removed other than violation? Change of ownership in the land? Or what would trigger them? It would be perpetual then, correct?
Yes.
Just generally, philosophically, SUPs are tied to the land, but the way they supposed to work is not like a zoning where you're changing wholesale use. You're saying that this particular use fits in this neighborhood at this particular time with these stipulations and requirements, and the county or a city could put in performance standards, stipulations, as well as a time limit to have it reevaluated every so often to determine whether they're meeting up to their obligations that are being stipulated in that special use permit.
And that's what I'm trying to get at, is perhaps there's something in there that we stipulate a time.
And
Or-
Vice, I'm sorry if I may interrupt just for a moment. There is actually provision in our code, Vice Chair Klob, members of the commission, Commissioner Sneff, under our code, and it says here that an SUP shall be valid for the duration of the special use, provided the use remains in conformance with the conditions of approval, which is what you mentioned, right? Not being in violation, and is not discontinued for 12 consecutive months. So if they don't use if they're not doing anything on the property for 12 months, consecutive months, effectively that SUP would be voided.
However, we could add a stipulation that would say, in 10 years, we could have a review of the SUP and make sure that they are still in compliance. I mean, that could be something that could be added.
But then does that just, who does that compliance review, and does that just add to our compliance department's workload?
Yes, both. Yes. It would be, I haven't usually 10 years is a long time. I've usually seen them 5 years, reevaluate them. But it would be staff, obviously, to have to do the compliance review.
And as we've discussed in the past, a lot of this is complaint based. So, if they're not living up to their standards, in theory, the neighbors could call and complain.
And the stipulation would say, well, in 5 years, though, we are requiring a review of the process of the SUP.
Yeah.
So that's just something for consideration.
No, I like that.
If I may, Chairman.
Please.
No, I just wanted to provide if I can provide some perspective on that. I actually had, depending on the type of development it is, I sometimes call it the wrecking ball stip, because even though you may not, like if somebody's performing well in 5 years or 10 years, you may just very well reapprove it, if that's the case that you're talking about, reapproval versus just compliance checking. The idea is that if somebody, let's say, makes hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars of investment on a site for that proposed use, but you've kind of you've thrown a sunset clause on that prospective use, then that owner may not even be able to ever do something else with that property or even get financing for that property. Because when they pull the approval, they'll be like, we're not going to give you X because we don't even know you can do your business plan after 5 years from now, because there's a wrecking ball step on it. And that's what I've called it. In fact, I had a self-storage facility. Maricopa County used to do time steps on SUPs for storage. And it really wreaked havoc on my clients' financing for their projects, because either they couldn't get it or increase their costs, because they didn't know after 10 years if they spent $6 million if that property was even worth that anymore, because they could theoretically have their ability to do that use suspended. Just something to contemplate. I know this is outdoor storage, but
I think in what I was trying to get at was in a review process where they had to come back before the board or the commission. It would be to staff saying, okay, in 5 years, we're just going to see your property and make sure that, you're doing what you said you were going to do. And then if that's good, okay, good. And maybe another 5 years, we'll come out or whatever it might be. Not a whole review process. That wasn't my point.
Understood. And
I don't want to put that burden on the
Commissioner Snepp.
Yeah.
If I may share one more other thing, in a different jurisdiction, there are quarterly reports done for special permits that are provided to the council and commissions as to compliance or non-compliance of approved SUPs and permits. So that's something to think about. There's a way to do it. This adds to staff's to-do list. So just letting you know it exists. You're right. You're onto something.
Commissioner Mooney.
Along with what Darren was saying, and Attorney Darren, it can stay vacant and not be in use for 12 months, but who's to know when it actually starts? So I do like the check every 5 years or something like that. They may get there the day before they stop for 12 months or something. No one's really going to know. That person's not going to call up the county and say, hey, closing the doors for 6 months. And so I think that would be the only reason I didn't expect them to come back before the commission either. It was more of just a checks and balances with the county. That's all, just more of a statement. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments for the applicant? Hearing none. Thank you, Jason. I'll open up the public portion. This will be for all three items. And I do have 2 speaker cards.
That's for the next case.
Oh, sorry, these are for H9. So then I'll hold those for the next card. Thank you. Anybody else want to speak to this case? Seeing none, I will close the public comment section and bring it back to the commission for discussion and or motions. Commissioner Mooney.
I move the Planning and Zoning Commission forward a recommendation of conditional approval for case PZ-008-25 to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the following one stipulation.
Vice Chair, I second.
Second. Commissioner Hartman. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Next one. Keep a good thing going.
Okay.
Commissioner Mooney.
I move the Planning and Zoning Commission forward a recommendation of conditional approval for case PZ-PD-005-25 to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the following 11 stipulations.
Do I
I'll
have a
second that.
Second. Commissioner Scott. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. And the next one is the SUP. Do we want to discuss any of the, adding something to the, there's 8 stipulations, either adding one?
I just say if we have the concerns that there's a proposal for putting a stip in for just a review process in 5 years or whatever time we deem appropriate or not. But
Within house,
yeah,
within the county.
yeah, they would not, applicant would not come before the board or commission. That's a proposal that's out there to the commission.
What does the staff think?
Vice Chair, question, would that be an added stip then?
I think that'd be probably an added step.
They're talking, so
The question is, do you want to add one, or you're asking for a 5-year stip? Did you have some concerns?
Just a quick comment, Vice Chair Club, members of the commission. In terms of stipulations, if it's a stipulation for staff, normally stipulations are requirements that are placed upon the applicant to do certain things. In this case, if you're placing a requirement upon staff as a stipulation, in essence, you're allowing staff, in other words, the question is, if staff doesn't do that, are they in is the applicant in violation of the SUP, right? Because it's not a requirement upon the applicant. It would just be an instruction to staff to look into it. I don't think that it would be appropriate to require as a stipulation of the SUP that staff do something.
You know, if I can chime in on this, and
Yeah.
albeit not my case, I did code enforcement for about 9 years prior to planning, and planning about 17, 18 years now. We had this kind of a stipulation routinely at Maricopa County, and it was an administrative nightmare. Also from a code enforcement perspective, it's very difficult. So I would remind the commission that, you know, we have code enforcement that's complaint driven. So if somebody sees something that they pull up those steps and they see that it's not in compliance, then they can always call code enforcement, and then it gets on our radar. So
I think that's a good point.
I think the following information is valid, and so, yeah, we won't want to put any undue burden on the staff to do that. It was just the concern that was given earlier about, you know, this is a SUP into the future. So I wasn't proposing, I was just comment.
Very good. Everyone good with that? Commissioner Harbin?
Vice Chair, I'll go ahead and move to approve. I move that the Plan and Zoning Commission forward a recommendation of the conditional approval of case SUP-006-225 to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the following 8 stipulations.
Very good. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I think we're gonna just take a quick 5-minute break.
5 minutos. We never do
Reconvene
5
at,
minutes.
let's say reconvene 11:15.
5 minutes.
Planning and Zoning Commission hearing, and we'll start off with PZ-006-25. Glenn.
good morning, once again, Vice Chair Club, commissioners. So
Actually, I called the,
yeah, I believe it's 00625, PZ 00625.
okay. Yeah, that's what I have. It's not what's on the screen.
Correct.
Okay.
His paperwork says 006 and the agenda says 008.
Okay.
Sorry. That's still not it.
Yeah, L.
And
Yeah,
625.
yes. What's on the screen is a different number? Is that?
So that's an error on the screen. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's American Eagle Ready Mix. So
Very good.
I think we're good.
Awesome. So
Okay.
PZ 006-25, is that?
Correct. So PZ 006-25, otherwise known as American Eagle Ready Mix. This is a requested Can you advance that? It's not responding to clicker. Okay, so this is a rezoning from light industry to warehouse, C11 to light industry, I2 for a portable concrete batch plant. The size of the parcel is 2.69 acres. This location is northeast of East Pinal Air Park Road and South Jet Drive. Owner applicant is Michael Smith, and Dan Burgess is the applicant. So if you can advance that. Next. So then here's the general location, the very south central portion of the county, about 2 miles or so east of Pinal Air Park. Next. This shows you the zoning map for the case and the surrounding zoning. And this is an aerial view of the property. As you can see, there's pretty much nothing around that. You'll see to the southwestern portion of that picture, elongated object. That's a 747 fuselage that you may have seen as you've driven out there. Next. And this is the 600-foot buffer map. Next. This is a conceptual site plan of the project. So this batch plant here it's essentially helping to support a, I believe, soon to be built solar project that was recently approved. Next. There's that, what I was alluding to earlier. So this is looking north into the subject site. Next, south, across the road, east, and then lastly, west. And next. So items of consideration: over the past year, the owner has operated a batch plant on the property under approved temporary use permit. So they would just simply like to continue that use. So the request to rezone I2 would allow the proposed use and allow this, on a more permanent basis to support the nearby SunZia solar project. At the time the report was written, no items of support or opposition had been received. Next. So 9 stipulations were listed in the staff report, and staff would be happy to entertain any questions the commissioners may have.
Very good. Come back. Mr. Mooney.
So they're wanting to rezone now when they've just been under a TUP?
Correct, because the TUP is hence the name temporary use permit. It's for a limited duration of time. So it's a very short, typically, period of time.
Can't you renew? I mean, if they're just doing cement for the solar project, can't you just keep renewing the TUP?
No, it's my understanding they can't keep renewing it. It has to, be rezoned or either cease. So that's why they're in this situation.
So is there another zone it could be besides IR? Was that?
Yeah.
Chairman, let me, Commissioner Mooney, let me clarify one thing. They started the project because of the SunZia project. However, they do have enough business. They want to maintain a permanent area there in Pinal County. They have a place in the West Valley, so they want to have another place. The code also says you can only have the TUP for 1 year. I think it's only renewed once or twice. So that's the purpose.
Anybody else? Very good. The applicant here.
I'm on the phone. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Okay.
He's online.
Can you hear me?
You want to say anything or add anything to it?
I'm trying to. It's not
Hearing
talking.
anything, but
Are you there? Hello? Hello? Hello?
with
Hello?
that, I will
Hello?
close that and open up to the public. Any questions or comments from the public regarding this? Seeing none, I will close the public portion and bring it back to the dais for discussions and or motions.
Mr. Chair, Vice Chair,
Commissioner Harmon.
I'll move that the Plan and Zoning Commission forward a recommendation of conditional approval on case PZ-006-2525 to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the following 9 stipulations.
Very good. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. And the next one. Okay. I'm going to come back to the commission real quick here before we go to the next case. These are the last 3 cases are all tied together. Do we want to push through and get it done? Do we want to, I do have several speaker cards on this one. And do we want to go to lunch and then come back and hear it? What's the purview of the commission?
I vote to go through
Okay.
with Pronzo.
Very good. We will keep pushing through. Awesome. With that in mind, I will call PZ-012-25, PZPD 007-25, and PZ-009-24. Oh, no, sorry, not the last one. Just those 2, right? Yep. We do have one more after that. I apologize. That was my error. I know. Shoot me now.
Good morning, Vice Chair, Commission members. My name is Valentin Panchik. I'm here to present to you 2 cases for the Project Bella. First case, it's rezoned from general rural to industrial I3 zoning district on 350 plus acres to develop thermal gas-fired generation plant and battery energy storage system, and PD overlay district zone for this parcel. This is a general location of the project. There's surrounding zoning, vicinity map, aerial map for the site. Here's the view from I-8 to the from the south on the project site. Here's from the east side, from the frontage of the proposed project. There's notice signs that was published and posted. So the property has zoned as GR. It's surrounded by the mix of rural lifestyle and suburban residential uses only. In 2024, there was approved case for comprehensive plan amendment for this area, and it was changed from moderate low density residential to general public facility services. The property is currently agricultural, surrounded by undeveloped GR zoned land to the north and to the west, mostly. East across Midway Road is undeveloped CR2 residential land from the frontage road. And there is a greeny wash defines the southern boundary of the site. Here is the conceptual plan for this project. So the most area that will be taken by the project buildings will be located in the northern part. There will be undisturbed southern part that's adjacent to Greeny Wash. PD overlay districts limits the uses to power plants, to battery energy storage system, to electric substation and related equipment, and fire district station and their accessory uses. There is some addition to development standards. just defining how to measure setbacks, just general, mostly as per code. There are also requirements for 7-foot tall concrete sound wall and a 200-foot landscape buffer to the north and to the west of exact project area. Here is a landscape. So according to the code requirements for the zone is to provide 50-foot landscape to residential areas, but by this PAD, applicants would like to provide 200-foot buffer zone to the north and to portion of the west side that adjacent to residential areas. As I understand, that was done after discussion during the neighborhood meeting with a member of that community. There are also landscaping 50 feet to the east of that property to the frontage. And there will be no buffer to the south because mostly it's undisturbed, and there are no need. There basically provided more than 50 feet buffer to the south of Greeny Wash. Here's also a wall plan that I mentioned. 7-foot tall wall will be surrounded the project area. And so the PAD overlay also provides clarity on a comprehensive plan designation, because its designation class is general facilities and services, and proposed rezone has more uses allowed. So this PAD book also will limit the uses to what the comprehensive plan allows on that designation. And also provide some additional buffer zone to residential areas. There are also a point of concern. There existing right-of-way, county right-of-way in the middle of this project, but the county engineers agreed and approved that applicant will abandon that road and right-of-way in the middle. So they can build up the project. It goes like directly in the middle of the project site from the east to west. There was 12 letters of support for Project Bella comprehensive plan amendment last year. Applicant attached those letters of support to this case. There was no opposition or support letter, particularly to this case after the notice was published and posted. And this area is a part of Casa Grande planning area of interest, and there was no, the notice was sent to the Casa Grande planning department. There was no feedback from them. And there is a rezone with 1 stipulation and PAD with 12 stipulations. And staff can support conditional approval for this case. Any questions to the staff?
Any questions to staff? This is the comp plan update that we did a year ago, something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right. No questions. Staff will bring up the applicant.
Oh, yes.
Well, thank you, Vice Chair and Commission. My name is Alex Hayes. I'm from the law firm Withy Morris Baugh, 2525 East Arizona, Biltmore Circle. I'm happy to be with you this morning to discuss Project Bella. This is the proposed natural gas generation and battery storage project. Here on behalf of Seguro Energy Partners, with me today, we have Principal with Seguro, Mark Thompson, and a few other members of the consultant team that can hopefully answer any questions you have. I'm unable to do so. And I know we're standing between you and lunch, so I'll try to be brief, but there are some important background information. So I'll try to move through it quickly, but I do want to cover these slides we have in the presentation. As you mentioned, Mr. Vice Chair, this is the same project that came through in the 2024 major comp plan cycle. So this commission probably remembers this project, and the commission did recommend approval of the project vis-a-vis the land use designation change from moderate density or moderate low density residential to general public facilities services. Pinal County is a little unique in that it kind of separates the major comp plan process from the rezone process. So that's really the only reason we're back here before you again today with this application, is we kind of have to separate the two. Same project that you was before you less than a year ago. I think it probably would be helpful to just kind of briefly discuss some of the background about why this project is needed. I think this commission is probably very well aware. You sit at a very good position to see the tremendous amount of growth that's occurred in Arizona in probably the last 10 years. Certainly on the employment front, a lot of new manufacturing, industrial, data centers, and also population growth and the resulting new residential development. And that's not just the Phoenix metro area that's here in Pinal County. That's city of Maricopa, Santan Valley, like we just saw, and all along the I-10 and now I-8 corridors with the new employment growth. But with that tremendous growth comes an impact on our ability to provide reliable power, and it has a taxing impact on the capacity on our grid. And in order to continue to provide reliable power and have the ability to grow like we have been, we need to bring on new sources of generation and additional capacity. You can see on that chart on the left, you can see that electricity demand has really increased in recent years. This is happening at the same time the demand's increasing, but we're also having planned retirements of coal-fired generation, which is really a good thing, but it has impacts on our ability to provide reliable power in this state. And so on the right, you can see that's a chart showing reserve margin. So power providers like to have a target reserve margin that's kind of the capacity above anticipated peak demand. And when you start getting below those target reserve margins, as we have in recent years, that's when you run the risk of having blackouts like you see in California and in some cases Texas. So how do we avoid becoming California? It's with projects like Project Bella, which is really two projects, power generation and storage, which provides that resource adequacy and helps maintain the ability to provide reliable power to the state. And I think that's why you're seeing support and interest in this project from SRP, and then here locally from ED3 and ED4. Sucro Energy for Project Bella, they're in advanced discussions with ED4 and SRP for a power purchase agreement for the power generated by this project. So the two components of Project Bella are the natural gas thermal generation. This would be provided by 10 GE LM6000 natural gas turbines. It's the same equipment that's used at Sundance, which is run by APS, and Coolidge, which is run by SRP. I think one important thing to note about the generation component of this project is it's what's considered a peaker plant. So this you compare that with a combined cycle natural gas generation, which is really providing base load power and kind of runs basically 24/7. These kind of facilities are quick ramping, and they're really only these turbines will only be used when demand on the grid exceeds what's the capacity on the grid. So you think in Arizona, at the end of the day, solar generation is declining. In the summer, it's still the hottest part of the day, so people are getting home, air conditionings are running, they're turning their TV on, demand's increasing, but that solar that's abundant during the day is no longer available, and you're needing additional generation and additional capacity on the grid, and that's when a facility like this would be used. Second component is the battery storage, and this is really an important component of managing the load on the grid. This project would have 440 megawatts of battery energy storage. It would store power during the day when that solar generation is cheap and abundant, and then redeploy that when the demand is higher. It's called load shifting, and it helps integrate renewables better, bring more renewables online and available to the overall grid, and also helps with frequency regulation and again, complementing that reliability factor. Both components of this project would be commercially viable by October 2028, which is the intent, or sorry, spring 2028. And so as soon as we move through the entitlement process, then this project will get going and be online to provide that reliability power. Here, as you saw, Valentin showed the conceptual site plan. I'll just talk about this briefly. The whole site is 350 acres, but the actual project facilities are really only about 150 acres. So it's a pretty small portion of the overall property. The vast majority of this property will remain undisturbed or have additional landscaping provided. I think one of the important things to highlight here is that 200-foot landscape buffer and raised berm that will be along the northern perimeter of the project and the northwestern perimeter adjacent that existing residential zoning. And that buffer and then the berm will provide additional sound and visual screening for those residentially zoned properties. Quickly, just the wall plan that Valentin showed. A project like this, you can imagine, does require some security. So there'll be security fencing around the bulk of the site, about bulk of the project site. And then along Midway Road, you'll have that sound and screen wall. In addition to the I3 zoning we're requesting, we'll also have a PAD overlay. We're really not changing many of the development standards. The only thing we're really adding is that 200-foot landscape buffer, so that is well in excess of what's required by code. And then also just to limit the uses. So the uses that are permitted within the PAD and ultimately on this property are just exactly what we're proposing here today, which is the power plant and ancillary services, ancillary offices, battery energy storage, electric substation and its associated equipment, and then a fire district station and its accessory uses, which I'll touch on more in a moment. Here you can see this is a visual rendering of the project. This is kind of dropped in from an existing photograph. This is from the southwest of the site, southeast of the site. You can see those existing 500 kV transmission lines on the left side of that image. Those are there today. And here you can see what the project would look like from I-8. This is the Montgomery Road exit. Again, you can see that those 500 kV transmission lines running through the center of that image. Those are about 140 feet tall. And so why did Project Bella choose this location for this project? And I think it really comes down to, it's kind of X marks the spot. This is really about the existing infrastructure on this site. This property is bisected by significant regional energy transmission infrastructure. That 500 kV line that you saw in 230 that was in that previous image. And then there's a natural gas pipeline that runs through the site. So all the gas provided for the thermal generation will come from that gas line, and all the interconnection will occur on site. So there's no need for additional infrastructure, no need to encumber additional land with new transmission lines, so it's a really efficient use of land. And I think the other important component to highlight of this is about 900 megawatts of capacity coming online with this project on 350 acres of land, but really only 150 acres of facility. And if you look at what a solar project would require to generate that much capacity, you're looking at least 10 times the amount of land. So it's a very land efficient use. And then from a compatibility standpoint, you look at what the surrounding residential. From the location of the generators, you're over 4,000 feet from the nearest residences to the east. That property that kind of intervenes the existing residences and the Project Bella site is actually controlled by Sagro Energy, so that will always have the ability to be maintained as a buffer. And then to the northwest of the site, there's a small handful of homes, I think there's 4 or 5 homes over there, and they're over 2,000 feet from the generators. You compare that to similar type projects for natural gas generation, and this is among the least dense, significantly less dense than most other similar facilities. So you can see that this type of project is compatible with residential uses in the surrounding area. But the fact that this one doesn't have any, only 58 within a mile, makes it very appealing for this project. And then lastly, from a planning perspective, this project site is located, it's in the Casa Grande planning area. It's located in really what's intended to be an industrial or employment corridor along I-8. We're about 5 miles to the east of the recently annexed portion, the South Industrial Annexation Area for Casa Grande. And this whole area, I think you'll be seeing more applications come for employment uses along this corridor for a variety of reasons. But this kind of lends itself to the kind of land use compatibility of the use that we're proposing. So throughout the kind of entitlement process for this project, we've done a lot of community engagement, met with neighbors in this surrounding area. And it's not just the comp plan process and the zoning. In order for this project to come online, it needed an air permit, which it has from the Pinal County Air Quality Control Division, and we'll touch on more of that in a moment. And then it also needed approval from the Arizona Corporation Commission, so it went through a line siting committee process. It was multiple days of public hearings and public comment, on-site visits, and that received unanimous recommendation of approval through that process. But I highlight that just to say that there's been a lot of community engagement on this project. There were initially, I think, perhaps understandably, some concerns from residents in the area, but the more they learned the facts about this project, I think a lot of those concerns were alleviated, and I think that's probably best demonstrated by the fact that we have no opposition here today. One of the things we heard, though, was that there was some concern about the water use of this project, and the reality is that this project will use less water than is currently used on the site with the agricultural operations. So there is a well on site. The current average use on an annual basis is about 466 acre feet. We're projected to use somewhere between 205 and 320. But in no circumstance would we exceed 420 acre feet, and that's really a function of the air permit that this project received. But in any circumstance, we're using significantly less water than is currently used on site. As I mentioned, the project received its air permit from the county. County reviewed that permit for compliance with national ambient air quality standards, which are designed to protect human health and welfare. So that air permit establishes the operational parameters of the facility. So this project must operate in conformance with that permit, and it requires continuous emissions monitoring, monthly reporting, and then ongoing compliance verification. Another thing we heard from neighbors was noise. I think there's some concern that this would generate a lot of noise, and I think some of the members of this community are a little burned maybe by a Tesla. We heard a lot about a Tesla and the noise that facility generates, and they were concerned that this was going to be maybe a similar situation where they hear one thing, but it turns into something else. But we've done the sound modeling, and the reality is that this project, under any circumstances, has to comply with the Pinal County noise ordinance, and will be well below the standards that requires. But we've done the modeling, and we did looked at it at a few different locations, one nearest residence to the east, and then a residence to the northwest of the site. And the modeling identified only an increase of 1.5 decibels above existing background noise. And 1.5 decibels is actually considered barely perceptible to the human ear. So I think from a noise standpoint, there's really going to be no negative impacts from this project. Another thing we discussed throughout that community engagement process was the idea of establishing a community working group. And Seguro Energy has agreed to fund that working group the tune of $4.1 million over 10 years to provide any kind of projects related to mitigating any potential negative impacts that do occur. We looked at potential, what the best mechanism is to manage that community working group, and what we've settled on is to establish a relationship with a community foundation. We're currently working with the Arizona Community Foundation, which would administer grants and manage the grant process so that residents within a mile of the site can apply for a grant. And potential grant eligible projects would be energy efficiency, replacing windows, looking at their wells, that sort of thing. But we're working with those community foundations. We're also in discussions with the Maricopa Community Foundation. And so that would be kind of the mechanism through which those grants are administered. We're also going to have an identified community liaison and a project website that is currently active, and we'll maintain that through the life of the project so that there's a source of information for residents in the area and somebody that they can contact with any questions. The other thing, important thing to highlight is through this process, we've learned that there is no fire jurisdiction that covers this property. I think the residents in the area, the current plan is if their house lights on fire, it's just to let it burn. And obviously that doesn't work for a project like this. So we have been working with what's called the Pinal County Fire and Medical Authority to establish emergency response for not only this project site, but for the surrounding area. So I think this would be a good benefit for the surrounding community to establish a fire jurisdiction that covers this area. And Project Bella will contribute a lot of upfront costs to stand up that Fire and Medical Authority. It's also willing to provide land adjacent. That's part of the reason that was included in the PAD land for that fire service to have equipment on site in the event that not only for the project site, but for that surrounding area if they need to service an emergency in this general vicinity. Project Bell will also provide funding for additional EMS equipment and other equipment to, again, serve this community. All of that is in addition to the emergency response plans and procedures that would be in place for a project like this. I think on some of these energy projects where this project compares favorably is that this, compared to a solar or other battery site, which are usually unmanned, this project would have personnel on site 24/7. So there's always going to be somebody on site and have, the ability to manage in the unlikely event that there is an emergency. And then, just wanted to highlight the fact that this project would have a substantial economic and fiscal impact for the county, estimated at $167 million of new tax revenue over the life of this project. It's an average annual revenue increase annual revenue of 6.7 million, and that compares to the current agricultural use on this site, which is about 4,500 annually. So it's a very significant increase to all the different taxing entities that cover this property, and will provide a very substantial benefit to the county. Also, a very significant job generator. Through the construction phase, obviously there'd be for a limited time a very significant job generator, creating many hundreds of jobs, if not in thousands. And then on an ongoing basis, it will be about 14 full-time employees. And these are very high wage paying jobs. So you look at an annual payroll of about 2.1 million or 2.2. And you think about the multiplier effect of this, it's going to be a significant economic contributor to the county and to this area in particular. As Valentin mentioned, there are support letters that we did receive those during the comp plan process, but those, that was under a year ago, and those letters were specific to the project, not necessarily the entitlement process that we were going through at that time. Grateful to have the support of the local utilities in ED3 and ED4, the Casa Grande Chamber of Commerce, and then our labor partners, who a few of them are here today, I think, to speak in favor of this project. And Project Bell is also, looks forward to being a valued member of the Pinal County community, and is already engaged with a number of the pillars of this community, as you can see on this slide. And then just to wrap up, this is a very important project at a time when Arizona is really reaching the capacity of its existing energy capabilities, energy providing capabilities, and we need to bring new generation sources and new capacity sources online. This can do so without the need for any additional infrastructure, no need to encumber any additional land. It does so. Solar is important, but a project like this provides a significant amount of capacity at a fraction of the land. And again, it does so with a lot of very positive land use attributes, very minimal impact on the surrounding area, minimal noise, minimal visual. And it provides that, I think, a significant benefit for the surrounding area with the addition of the fire jurisdiction. So with that, I think I'll answer any questions you have.
Any questions? Mr. Hartman.
Vice Chair, thank you. So I had 3 questions, but you did a great presentation and you covered basically all 3. The homes, the opposition, that was in the papers a lot. So I commend you for getting that handled. 2 was the water use. Your outline was good there. And so that clarified that one. So just on the 3rd question, you said you were in the negotiations with ED4 and who else?
ED3 and SRP. Sorry, ED4 and SRP.
SRP. And how far along are you? Do you think that's something that's likely to get done, or still kind of open?
Very close.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Scott.
Yeah, that was a really good presentation. I did read your proposal page to page, 700, whatever it was. Took me a little bit of a while. So just a few general questions that might have been covered that I missed. The power that's generated from this facility, is it going to stay locally, or is it going to California or someplace else?
It's a good question, Commissioner. I know that's one that's frequently asked of energy projects here. And the best I can tell you is that with the power purchase agreement, the utility is buying the power to serve their customer base. where the individual electron goes, it's a very complicated process to manage an overall electric grid. But with the demand that exists within the state, I think we can be comfortable that the power generated from this facility will stay local.
So do you have agreements already in place with local providers like APS or SRP?
That's the question that Commissioner Hartman just asked, and we are negotiating that power purchase agreement currently, and fully intend to have that in short order, and that power will be serving the local customer base.
Because in your presentation, you made comments that we could run out of electricity. So I'm thinking electricity here in Pinal County, but it'd be a shame for this thing to get going and then ship all the electricity out of this county. You agree with that?
Yeah, what I can tell you is the utilities that we're negotiating serve Pinal County, and there are some particular projects that would very likely directly benefit from this project.
Okay, that's really important. On the battery storage, where's that energy going to come from? Do you already have an agreement with somebody?
So that will be, that power is stored from the grid into the batteries. So it's taken from the grid. I can speak, I think Mark Thompson is from Seguro can maybe speak more specifically to that, but it is pulled directly from the grid.
I assume it's not coming from your gas powered plant, right?
No.
Okay. And then you didn't talk too much about the battery storage, but how many batteries are we looking at? Like units?
I don't know the individual battery cabinet number. The total capacity is about 480 megawatts.
Yeah, that doesn't make much sense to me. That's why I asked for the specific number.
You know, battery cabinet. About 88 battery cabinets.
Okay. I've read through your document, and it says that if they short out or something of the such, that they're cooled. Now, if they catch on fire or short out, whatever we want to call it, what's the process for putting that out?
So it's a good question, Commissioner, and batteries have come a long ways since I think some of the headlines that we're used to reading about, battery fires and explosions. But each individual battery cabinet has kind of a multi-step prevention, mitigation, and suppression process. So we can, again, they'll be manned 24/7. So each cabinet, you can identify if they're getting too hot, and you can take corrective measures. If in the situation that there is a fire incident, each individual cabinet is self-contained, and that prevents the risk of the fire spreading to additional cabinets. But the batteries, cabinets themselves, you just let them burn.
Yeah, like in your proposal, probably won't be able to shift to the page in time, but you went over how to contain those fires. We talked about water, we talked about foam, you talked about alternative agents and stuff. That was really beneficial. But in the case that they do catch on fire, I also read in there that the protocol is just to let it burn. Did I read that correctly?
You're correct. And perhaps we could, if you have additional questions on this, we can bring up our emergency response consultant who can speak to this in much more detail, and I think probably answer your questions a lot better than I can.
All right, I'll have some questions for him then. And then I was interested in that the community working group that you're going to set up. Could you tell us a little bit about that, a little bit more?
Yeah, so this kind of stemmed from the initial conversations we had with the residents in the surrounding area, and they were had an interest in just being more involved with an understanding of once we get through the entitlement process, how can they stay informed about the operations of this project? And we proposed the idea of a community working group to have kind of a forum to have additional discussions. I think we realized that might be a little cumbersome for everybody, and we heard from some of the folks in the community that maybe they don't want to be participating in a group like that. So I think what we've settled on is establishing a community liaison as part of this project, with contact information. That's something that they can always reach out to with questions and be available for the community. that was the one component of it. The second component of it was the providing funding for the community. And for that, we've established, I think the best path forward is to work through a community foundation, which would be able to administer grants that would be funded by Project Bella for identified project that they would apply for.
I think it's a wonderful idea to do that, to have transparency between the residents and the corporation, so everybody stays on the same page and we don't get any false information floating around there. I was just curious, what type of grants are we talking about? Is that just for the residents that live in a certain proximity of the plant, or does it go out farther than that?
Yeah, it's a good question. We have, the plan is for it to be residents within a mile of the project, because I think the goal is for this to be directly benefiting the surrounding community and not being, dispersed to areas that might not have any potential impact from this project. So the kind of criteria for receiving grant would be living within 1 mile of the site.
What kind of grants would these be? We're not talking like new cars or
No.
air conditioning for your house or boats or things like that?
We would establish criteria, certain types of projects that would be permitted uses of the funds, but the idea would be things like maybe replacing windows for energy efficiency, well testing, new landscaping, things that are outside the kind of project boundaries, but would benefit the surrounding area.
Then you talked a little bit that you were going to donate 20 acres or so to build a fire station. Is that what it is? So is Bella going to fund the whole thing out of the 4.1 million, or is you going to get some community participation in that?
No, another good question. Project Bella would be donating the land and some equipment. We're probably building the structure that exists on that property, but then we'll be partnering with that Pinal County Fire and Medical Authority for their ongoing operations. And they would, in addition to that, they provide some seed funding for that fire service, but then it would be funded on an ongoing basis by an assessment.
Thank you. That's all I got on that subject.
Any other questions? Mr. Mooney?
I just have a couple, and then if the fire gen one comes up. You said there would be on-site staff 24 hours a day. So will they be just patrolling, or will there actually be like a facility they'll be staying, like a house, not a house, but like a building that they would be in and go out periodically? I mean, 24 hours a day in this heat.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. There will be offices on site to be 2 shifts of 12 hours,
okay.
Probably 6 or 7 employees at a time. So that, that includes your operations personnel, making sure, running the actual facility. But nobody would be living on site like you might see at like a storage.
Yeah, I didn't mean a house like a real house. I just meant a house for them, or office space.
Yeah, there would be indoor offices.
Yeah. You mentioned, or I saw on one of the slides about a sound study. This is 120 days after it gets underway.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. So we've done the sound modeling, but then once the project is operational, we would do another sound study to test the actual sound levels were produced by the project. And at that point, if we are, exceeding the noise ordinance requirements, which I don't anticipate because the modeling is well below the thresholds, then we would install additional, sound mitigation measures.
What sorts of things would those be?
Sound
Trees and
baffling. There's different kind of engineering solutions that would be part of the actual structure itself to mitigate the sound.
Okay. And I'll ask them, and then maybe the other gentleman come up. So there'll be fire training. How often would that be done? Who and where would the trainers be coming from, and what types of, you did mention what types of fire equipment would be provided? Because I have heard from, these batteries are quite similar to the ones for solar. And so there's a different sort of fire treatment than going to a regular fire. So where would all that be coming from, and how often would the training happen, because staff changes over time? So those are just some of my questions on the fire part.
Yeah, no, very, very good question, Commissioner. And I think I'll again defer to the emergency response consultant, because he'll actually be preparing that training plan, and they will be offering the training with the Fire and Medical Authority. And I will also say that the jurisdiction that will be providing the service to this area also has experience with these types of facilities. So won't be something new, but there will be ongoing training, and Brian can speak to
So how
that.
far away is the existing facilities?
It's currently in Arizona City, but that's part of the reason why the facility on site will be so helpful, because it'll have equipment on site.
Do you expect that to be done and prepared to take control by the time this is operational?
We do.
Or you do? Okay. Thank you. That's my questions.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Commissioner Steff?
Excuse me, a lot of my questions have been answered already, but I have a question. Is there a potential future for this plant to expand and grow and enlarge? Or is it going to stay the footprint that it originally will be built at?
No plans for it to grow, and I think if we did, we would have to come back before you to do that.
I'm just looking at the swath of land and the undisturbed that's to the south of it. That's a pretty large area, and I was wondering if that was for future growth.
Yeah, part of that is reason for that is that's in the floodplain. It's the green wash, so it would be where the site is currently. The project facility is located is outside of that floodplain, so it would require additional engineering measures to locate within there.
Well, there goes. That's all I have. Thanks.
Any other questions? Mr. Hartman?
That brings up a good point. On the floodplain, you just said where the facilities are going to be built are outside that.
That's correct.
So that's really good, because it hasn't flooded in a long time, but this is a big flood area.
It's a substantial regional
Hopefully you
floodway. Yeah.
mitigated all those potential hazards.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any others? Had a couple. A couple of these things are kind of rehash a little bit about what's already come up, but they are concerns of mine as well. An important one that I have with any of these alternative power means, be it solar, be it natural gas, be it, whatever, is supporting the local community. And, if it's produced in Pinal County, it should stay in Pinal County. It shouldn't fund North Scottsdale and so on. So, and I think that's been a big challenge with any of these types of projects in the past. And, where I know you can't necessarily control where the power goes, but you kind of can too. So hearing that you're in direct contact with ED4 and, hopefully it will stay in this area. I did also had some concerns on the land to the south, and thank you for clearing that up. Something that, and this is a brand new thing, I saw it over the weekend. I haven't had time to vet it on my own. I'm going to ask the question, not necessarily expecting a full answer, but I'll put it out there anyway. Apparently there's been some recent studies done regarding some of these alternative wind, solar, natural gas, and so on. And the amount of energy that they're putting back into the grid is such a small percentage of what is actually needed that it's almost like not doing anything at all. And in part of the report that I read, it basically said we would have to, in most areas, especially in Arizona, we're talking hundreds of thousands of acres that we would have to have as alternative energy to even come close to where we are. And some that are watching this today might also say, it sounds like we're already doing that, with all the solar projects that have been approved in the last several years. But, my concern is if it's such a small percentage, it's a lot of money, it's a lot of development, and it's taking a lot of land away from other uses. And I still need to go down, I admit I need to go down this rabbit hole a little deeper to see how true this is. I'm not a big conspiracy guy, but on the flip side, I want to make sure that, all these land uses are what's best for our county as we move into the future. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Sure. No, I think it's a fair question, Vice Chair, and I think it's actually a positive aspect of this project. Until we have viable nuclear generation, then the natural gas generation is about the least land intensive generation source we have. So you compare a project like this, again, it's about on 150 acres. You compare that to a solar project that has a similar capacity, you're looking at thousands of acres, many thousands of acres. So we need more projects like this. And I think that's a reason why this project should move forward, because we do need a lot of additional capacity to support the growth that we're seeing. And this is exactly the type of project that helps us get there. And I think from a land use intensity standpoint, it's actually fairly minimal. But I look forward to the day when we can figure out how to do modular nuclear and make that happen.
I think we approved it a couple of years ago to allow it in the county, so.
Good. Maybe we'll be back before you soon with a project.
The last one that I had, so you're creating a community working group, and that's great, and I support that, and I think it's something that is needed, and you're over 10 years, you're going to fund it with, $4 million, and again, that's great, thank you, that's awesome. What happens after 10 years? Does the group go away? Does the funding go away? What does this picture look like in 2036?
Yeah.
2038, I think is when you have to guess.
I would say today we're voluntarily committing to 10 years and $4 million, which is, I think not an insubstantial amount of money.
No.
And when you look at the additional, revenue generated by a project like this, that does go to the various taxing entities that are applicable to this property. I think there's 14 different taxing entities. So 167 million is an additional new amount of money for the county that's going to directly benefit this community and the broader county. So, in 10 years, I don't know what that looks like. Maybe there's an opportunity to provide additional funding, but at this point, we're committed to 10 years.
And I think that's a little bit my concern, because we'll compare it to customer service. We get this great customer service for 10 years, and then all of a sudden, poof, done. And is that best serving the community that maybe that relied on that, for so long? Having that access, having that open dialogue, that transparency, and all of a sudden after 10 years it goes away. Maybe the funding necessarily doesn't need to be there, but having an entity for that dialogue for the community, I think is important beyond the 10-year mark.
No, it's a fair point. I should clarify that the 10 years is just for the funding. There will be a community liaison and a point of contact for the community on an ongoing basis for this project.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I had. Any other questions for the applicant? Scott.
I was just curious on the gas powered portion. I don't know if they're the exhaust pipes, how tall are those things? That's probably not the right word, but just out of curiosity.
Generator stacks?
Yeah, that'd be better.
60 feet.
60?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? We're good. Thank you.
Do you want
to bring the fire guy up? Yeah, we'll do that.
Called a lot worse than that. The fire guy.
Did you fill out one of these cards?
I did, yes.
Okay,
Brian Scholl, Gilbert, Arizona. So actually, I just retired from Phoenix Fire after 23 years. So I'm here to make sure that their system is all code compliance. And also I'm here to make sure the fire department's trained on all the aspects of how you handle a situation. So that's my job here. And I've trained in Arizona, across the country, up into Canada, and actually into Mexico on battery energy storage systems. It's been a passion of mine since we had an incident out west, and I made sure we're not going to do that ever again. And that's why I'm here with these guys. So I'd be happy to answer your questions one by one as we go through.
okay. Mr. Mooney.
So the fire training, how often?
Code requires fire training before commissioning and then annually, but as much as they want. And when we do the training, the more the merrier. So I want to bring in every single department that may have, be part of a bigger response. So Casa Grande, the new fire district we're doing, whoever wants to come, I'm gonna give them training.
So it's you?
Me
Is
or,
it-
yeah.
Who and where, and where are they from? So-
I live in Gilbert, so it's easy for me to come down and do the training. Last week I was in Tucson doing training. I was in Quartzsite doing training. So all over the state, I'm doing training.
Well, and I didn't mean like, where are you from, but like, is it an organization or it's just you personally?
So
So,
it's our organization. So Energy Safety Response Group is the company that I work for. We're founded by a lieutenant hazmat from FDNY and then a chief from Ohio. And we had a bunch of projects on the East Coast. I'm kind of the West Coast person out here. California, Colorado. I actually leave for Colorado tomorrow. So either me or someone from my company, and everyone in our company has fire service experience. And we do everything from training to emergency response plans to testing. So I know exactly what's in the smoke or what's in the runoff. And then we also do emergency response. Because what we found is that we don't need the fire department just sitting there babysitting these things. We come in, take over the scene, and the fire department goes home and can respond to other calls.
If I'm reading you right, you're subcontracted by the owner?
Correct.
Okay. So this plant, I assume, would have an operator who's designated as fire chief?
No. So the fire chief would be probably Chief Heaton with the new Pinal County Fire Medical. And they would have a plant manager, and we'll do emergency operations training for them as well, and then emergency response training for the first responders. But if there's an incident, they're going to call 911, and this new Pinal Fire and Medical would respond.
All right, so you have no one on site as an employee of the operator who is responsible for fire training and response. Is that correct?
They're not going to do any, we do it because I have the experience. I've got 23 years experience. in
I
fire
get
service,
that
yeah.
part.
But-
Does the owner have someone on site as an employee who's responsible
Yeah, I
for
mean-
fire training?
We're the ones that we do the training for them.
So it's subcontracted and nobody, as the owner's employee, is responsible for training and response.
Yeah, if I could just jump in. As our consultant, they would train the on-site staff. So the staff on-site would be trained by the consultant.
I'm looking for the answer that says there is one lead person responsible for fire training and response that is a direct employee of the owner. I hate yes or no questions because they put words in your mouth, but I want a yes or no answer.
Yes, there would be somebody on-site who has been trained and would be in charge of the fire response.
Okay, that's all I was looking for.
Very good.
You're a subcontractor. I can fire you in a heartbeat.
I hope not, but yes, sir.
I want somebody on site who is responsible as an employee under the owner that is going to take care of these things. I don't think that's an unreasonable request.
I'll add to this. I believe that there's a fire station component to this site as well.
Right, but I've worked turbine plants, I've worked oil industry. We always had an employee under the owner who is responsible for these things, coordinates subcontractors, whatever, coordinates with outside the gate. There has to be a key person involved.
Yeah, kind of, we call them subject matter experts. So someone on the plant is going to be that subject matter expert that's going to meet with the fire department once they come on scene. That's what we kind of call it in the emergency response plan.
I think I would just add to that again, Alex Hayes. There would be, as I mentioned, there's on-site staff, probably 6 or 7 people at any one point as part of that shift. And one of those people would be the identified facility manager and would be in charge of fire response in that situation, as trained by our third party.
All right. You get where I'm going.
Sure.
This shouldn't be completely subcontracted.
No, I think it's a fair question, and I think we were just getting tripped up on who's being trained, but the actual employee on site, employee of Project Bella, would have the training from our third-party consultant and would be the responsible entity or responsible person on site.
All right, thank you.
And can I go back to my question?
Go for it.
Commissioner Money.
So does your staff have, is familiar with gas and the battery burn issues?
Yes, ma'am. My company's all renewables we're good on, all the way from wind, turbines, every component of it. So the training that I provide will be every component on that site.
So, this just goes back to previous and I've only been here for a year and a half. So they've been mostly solar cases, but they seem to be the same sort of battery. And I've just heard over and over that they just let them burn. And that when they do burn, whether it's just one or they, go to the next and many of them, that those chemicals are very toxic. And so what can you do to mitigate some of that toxicity? One of the things I'd mentioned before was having, it sounds crazy, but some panels to close the vents so that it will just burn itself out. Not, that's the reason I'm asking for it, but to hold the toxicity, or does that toxicity actually have to escape?
Right. And Commissioner, very good points. A lot of what you're talking about is the first generation battery. They're called nickel, manganese, cobalt. Very heavy metals, very toxic fumes that came off those fires. We've come a long way, and now they're called LFP or lithium iron phosphate batteries. A lot more tolerant and don't have the toxic fumes that we see. All our testing that we do and across the country in different testing labs, all the smoke that comes off these in thermal runaway are the same smoke that comes off a commercial fire or even a residential fire. We have so much fire retardant stuff in our house and plastics. That's what's really the toxic stuff. So, but before we even get to that, we have this battery management system inside each cabinet, and it's looking at each individual cell. So a cell is like a AA battery. We put cells in a module, modules with a rack, and we make a big enclosure. And they're looking at this for temperature and voltage. If it goes out of spec, they can shut down that cell, that module, that rack, or the entire enclosure before anything happens. And what you're talking about when it goes from one to another, propagation. These have to be tested to make sure they don't propagate. Because if they do propagate, they don't get listed, and the code requires them to be listed to UL 9540. So there's a lot of testing that we've done from the beginning to where we are today, and a lot more reliable, a lot better tested, and way more regulations than we've ever had before.
And I'm not really too smart when it comes to these battery issues, but lithium is used in a lot of those electric car batteries and things. And so I know from different firemen in the area that there isn't a whole lot they can do to those. And they are quite hot, burn very fast, and can be quite toxic as well. And maybe that is other things in the car besides just the battery. But that is just, these batteries are just becoming a concern. Even a little tiny one in a garbage truck will set them on fire if something, if they're in it too long. But so that's just why I'm asking these, and maybe this battery is totally different than what I've heard before, but.
Yeah, so the batteries that we're talking about here are night and day from your cell phone, your micromobility, electric vehicles. Those, there's no testing and no listing. Okay. Here, these are highly tested and highly regulated. So we know, we've tested these, we know how they work. If for some reason there is a thermal event inside the enclosure, they're designed to be contained in that enclosure. And all we would do as first responders is potentially protect exposures. They're not occupiable, so I don't have to go inside the building to pull anybody out. And so we can sit back and we can protect exposures, and we say, let it consume itself. And that's what it does.
Okay.
And then we bring a third party like myself in, and we come in, former fire service folks, and we actually will do the remediation, take the batteries out, overpack them, sell them, ship them up to Gilbert to life cycle where they'll be recycled.
All right. That's all for me. Thank you very much. I appreciate your education on that.
No worries.
Thank you. Mr. Scott?
The information that you've provided has been really helpful because, like you said, there's old batteries and new batteries, there's old technology and new technology and things of the such, but you've done a really good job explaining it.
Thank you, sir.
So what's referred as reading through the proposal, what is electrical leakage?
Electrical leakage? Not sure. Electrical leakage is, unless it's talking about like stranded energy, I'm not.
It was
exactly
just in
sure.
the proposal, I don't know,
Yeah.
you're the battery guy, you must be.
I'm the battery safety
Electrical
guy.
person.
I don't know how to put them together. I just know how to respond to them. Oh, so when you charge, you have some loss. I guess that's what they're calling with electrical leakage. That is not my expertise.
So what is cell off gassing?
Cell off gassing, there's a liquid electrolyte inside the cell. And basically when that heats up from whatever reason, mechanical damage, you drop it. I have a video of a dog biting a cell phone and going into a runaway. You get that off gassing, and inside that off gassing is, there's some hydrogen, CO2, CO, those type of things. That's what's coming off there.
So I guess just to be clear that the batteries are in a container, and if they're on fire or shorting out, everything stays within the container and it's allowed to burn through its process till it stops.
Correct. Now there will be potentially some off gassing, but the fire itself stays to that enclosure, and that's what we've tested, and we can prove that.
So is the off gassing, is that the same as toxins or contaminants?
Nothing that we found. We looked at Escondido, who recently had an incident, or Monterey County had the incident. Nothing that they found in the air was outside the federal guidelines.
I thought in Monterey, they had like lithium like 3 miles away. And people's, I mean, that's just what you read.
Yeah, that's what I've read too, but I also read that there was some other things, but that's because it was an old coal plant too. And it was in a building not designed for what, it was doing. And plus it was first generation batteries, nickel, manganese, cobalt. So a lot of bad things in those batteries, and not the batteries that are going to be here.
Yeah, just from a common person point of view, I was reading here in your page 17, but it says that when they catch on fire, you just let it burn. So in my mind, it's just like a stack of tires or boards or whatever. And it's just going to burn, and you're going to use the water in the tanks that's available to keep it from spreading to other batteries or other locations. And
Correct. There's enough space and distances, and that we can basically protect exposures. And we say let it consume itself, because let it burn doesn't sound so good to the public.
so it's a contained burn.
Correct.
For the most part.
Yep. And we call it a defensive operation, where we come in, we're not going to put a lot of manpower towards the incident. We're going to basically manage it and be what we call defensive.
Man, I had about 30 questions for you guys, but you seem to have answered most of them, which is good. All right, I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? I had one. It's actually pretty simple. And I forget the acronym, I apologize, but I know that this area, all the emergency responders are all kind of tied together. So if one is, is busy, if Casa Grande is busy, Maricopa may come down.
Yep.
And I know we have, having that ability and making sure that those agencies that could respond, I think it's also important to make sure that they're trained as well. So
100%. Yeah. So it's called mutual aid or automatic aid,
Yeah.
depending on the different agreements. And that's why I was telling the commissioner, when I do the training, we're going to bring everybody in. So everyone's going to get part of the training, because at some point there's going to be a battery or some sort of renewable system in their jurisdiction. So we might as well have them train up right now.
and we do have some rural districts out there too. So we want to make sure that everyone's on board, everyone knows what's going on.
I just did a training out in Quartzsite, way out in Quartzsite, and very, very small department, but because they have a lot of batteries down I-10.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you. Any other questions? Very good. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Any other questions for the applicant before we go to the public portion? With that, I will go open the public hearing for this. We're talking about both cases. And I have a Gary White.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Gary White. I actually represent the UBC, the United Brotherhood of Carpenters. In our jurisdiction alone, we have over 96,000 members. Here in Arizona, about 6,000. I represent the millwrights too, so I know about power plants. If you guys are ever interested in knowing what LM6000 looks like, you got them at Sundance, you got them at Desert Basin. They're the smaller units that sit next to those big giant units. The reason that I'm backing this, because I'm from Arizona. I was born here in Phoenix, actually. The lot of land that they're using to produce that many megawatts, you go out to Arlington, it makes me ill to see thousands. It'd take about 4,000 acres to produce that many megawatts in a small deal. I've been out to where the site's gonna be. It's literally, the distance is like, I don't know that they'd even be able to hear anything that the generators produce. They're not that loud. I mean, even when you're driving next to them, you can't hear them. So I just appreciate these guys. I appreciate the fact that they've put together a community plan. I watch them really taking concern what the community was asking. Let's do this. Let's help them. I've never seen this in all my years of doing this. A company goes so far for the community. So as far as the UBC and I am concerned, we are in support of this project. Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you, sir. And I failed to say that we do limit speeches to 3 minutes. The timer will go off when you're getting close. Richard Garcia.
I guarantee I won't be 3 minutes. Good morning, Commissioners. Put my glasses. So I'm actually with the Operating Engineers Union. I represent 21,000 heavy equipment operators and also mechanics and grade checkers. And I actually live not too far from that facility. And just listening to Mr. Wright, I can appreciate what he's bringing to the table as far as talking about this. I would like to thank the opportunity to speak to you today. Once again, my name is Richie Garcia. I'm with the Operating Engineers. I represent 21,000 members across Arizona, Nevada, and California, in which most of these operators do live in Pinal County. We can help supply the workforce needed for this project, along with highly trained apprentices. Our facility is right down the road here in Casa Grande. And I've been here 9 years, and they have well over 100 apprentices that they got out there working. This is just another workforce tool to help us help this community. And actually the apprenticeship has been there for 40 years. So we're not new to the area. The Operating Engineers Local 12 supports the Bella Natural Gas Battery Storage Project and would hope that the Planning Commission would approve this project. Project will bring and produce hundreds of good paying construction jobs with good benefits and will pump money back into the local economy along with the tax revenue for Casa Grande and for Pinal County. Not to mention the long-term maintenance jobs that comes along with the plant. And thank you for this opportunity to speak today.
Good. Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mark Thompson said he's in favor but does not wish to speak. Brian Sohal?
Yeah, so.
Okay. Do you have anything else you want to say?
No, thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Aubrey Thomas, in favor, does not wish to speak. Cesar Corral?
Good morning, Commissioners. Pardon me if I butcher the names. Chairman Menenga and Vice Chairman Klob. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Cesar Corral, and I am proud to be here today on behalf of hundreds of Boilermakers from Boilermakers Local 627. These are skilled union workers who help build and maintain Arizona's energy, manufacturing, and infrastructure projects. We strongly support Project Bella because it means real jobs for local workers, real investments in our communities, and real progress for Arizona's economy. These members are experts in high-pressure welding, steel fabrication, rigging, and industrial assembly. Exactly the skill set this project demands. These are not just jobs, they are safe, career path, family-sustaining jobs that, above all, keep local dollars circulating in our state. We are thankful Project Bella has opted to use our local union workforce. They get top-quality work done right the first time, with strong safety standards and accountability. That's a win for workers, taxpayers, local communities, and the long-term success of this project. This is a chance to build something that lasts not just physically, but economically. We urge you to support Project Bella and ensure Arizona keeps moving forward with skilled labor at the foundation. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Good. Any questions? Thank you, sir. Alex Hayes. He's in favor of it. In case anybody was wondering. And Sergio Estrada, in favor but does not wish to speak. That's all the speaker cards. Anybody else wish to speak on this? Seeing none, I will close the public portion of this and bring it back to the commission. Do we have any additional questions, comments, the applicant or staff? Or I'd entertain discussion and or motions. Commissioner Mooney.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission forward a recommendation of conditional approval of case PZ-012-25 to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the following one stipulation.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Commissioner Hartman, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. The next one.
Found it.
Commissioner Mooney.
I move the Planning and Zoning Commission forward a recommendation of conditional approval of case PZ-PD-00725 to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the following 12 stipulations.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Scott, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, guys. We got one more case. You still good? All right, let's go.
I want to watch their faces say no. I don't see this one.
I think I can manage that. Good afternoon, Chairman Klob, members of the commission. Patrick Zay Roberts, Senior Planner, here present case PZ-00924. Presentation here in just a moment.
Yeah.
Okay. So this proposal is from Rose Law Group on behalf of Reliable Property Management LLC. The owners are requesting approval of a rezone from general rural GR to light industrial and warehouse zoning I2. And this property is on a total of 10.11 acres. The intention of this project is to develop a mobile vehicle repair business on parcel 401-55003K. The property is located on East Battaglia Road and about 943 feet east of Edgedale Road, east of City of Eloy and unincorporated Pinal County. This is a map of the approximate location of the site. The zoning district of the site and the surrounding properties. As you can see, the City of Eloy lies to the west of the parcel. A vicinity map showing Eloy, City of Eloy boundaries, and surrounding properties. An aerial map of the subject property. This is a map of the current Pinal County Comprehensive Plan designation. The property does currently possess the employment designation. I do want to add an additional caveat that we did receive a letter of opposition that we'll get into a little bit later, but it does discuss the City of Eloy planning area. And did want to mention that per City of Eloy's planning area, this does lie within a high density residential location, leading to a position of opposition from City of Eloy. This is an image looking north on the property, south, east, and west. This is an image of the site plan, or the proposed site plan for the subject property. Simple conic structure for maintenance of their vehicles and storage, surrounded by landscaping on all four sides. So some items for consideration. Submitted application for this land use request are for approval of simply a rezoning to I2. If the application is approved, the subject property will be rezoned to I2 and allow development of a truck maintenance yard on 10.11 acres of land. The property has legal access, and the proposal meets the goals of the comprehensive plan for the employment designation. As mentioned before, we did receive a letter of opposition and no letters of support from members of the public. And from City of Eloy, that letter of opposition discusses conflict with the general plan area, indicating future development of high density residential, and then conflict with proximity to the State Route 505 north-south corridor study to the east of this site.
Oh.
Staff offers this rezoning PZ 00924 with one stipulation. At this point, does the commission have any questions of staff?
Any questions of staff?
I just have a question.
Yes.
Can you go back to your image of the site? Is the property, yeah, the other one? No. You passed it.
Oh, I'm
Is
sorry.
that the site plan?
The site plan?
Site plan, yeah. Yeah, that right there. So we're looking at gravel lot, correct? Paved parking.
I believe they are going to have a paving requirement as determined by the county engineer at site plan review.
That was what my concern was, because if it's a maintenance yard, right? So there'll be oils and stuff like that.
Correct.
So, okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mooney.
How far away is this from that State Route 505 that you mentioned? And do you have any, I mean, I guess the two conflicts just kind of conflict each other because State Route 505, but it's also supposed to be high density, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, so the letter describes specifically a 1,500-foot alignment for the north-south corridor. It's that whole 1,500-foot buffer that we're utilizing as a corridor study to determine eventual siting for the 505 freeway. That being said, I don't have an exact distance from that buffer or that area, but I know this lies within proximity to the east.
But you don't
Based
have,
on ADOT maps, I don't have any maps on this that show
and
exactly
there's
where.
nothing like in the works for 505, like.
I would refer that question possibly to the county engineer, but or possibly an ADOT representative. But my understanding is that they're in pre-siting spaces at this time.
I know when I went to the meeting on the north-south corridor, even though they started having the meetings, that's way past my lifetime before anything happens, so.
And probably past mine as well, but it's understandable that we want to ensure there's no conflicts with that buffer. We can certainly appreciate City of Eloy's position that they want to minimize impact, although at this time it is just a corridor study.
Thank you, Patrick.
Any other questions for staff? Commissioner Scott.
Is this property in the floodplain off of the Battaglia Wash?
No, this property is designated zone, flood zone X.
Is what?
Flood zone X, no impact.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Sir, excuse me.
I'll bring up the applicant.
Good afternoon.
Is the mic on? We're good? Okay, just want to make sure.
Appreciate your work tuning in today. really comprehensive work that the commission's done. And so we appreciate being able to present our project here for you and for Lisa's company, which is the Reliable Plant Maintenance Company. I do have a slide deck. So I'll click through those real quick, and some of the questions that we wanted to talk about have already been raised. So we say reliable plant maintenance. Really, actually, it's not actually a maintenance yard. It's a company that employees. We have 17 employees right now that they keep trucks at their homes, and they go and they service sand and gravel pits from Phoenix to Tucson. And so they go and actually just dispatch directly from their homes to provide equipment repair directly on site at those locations. What's being proposed is to use this land that Lisa has to have a shop building, 6,000 square feet, where if one of those trucks does need an oil change or whatnot, they could come and they could get that done. There's not we'll have some connexes as well for like equipment that we can store interior, not exterior storage of that. There's no like sand and gravel. I say sand and gravel. There's no materials that are being brought to the site or taken away from the site. So we really see this as a low impact use for this property owner's location, and makes a lot of sense given the long-term scope of really how development will be taking off in this area in the future. Again, one of the really key aspects that we think of from the county's perspective is that the 10-acre site is currently within the comp plan's employment designation. And so this type of a business use fits within what the county foresees in this area. And really we think is important to consider. Of course, I'll show some of the aspects that we've looked at with the city of Eloy and their considerations as well. Just pointing out again, Patrick mentioned some of these aspects. So the site, we would have a significant buffer, 50-foot buffer at least to the surrounding properties. I've talked to the owner to the west of us. He's supportive of our project. Didn't get his letter in, which is frustrating, but we've been in consultation, and so the access to our site along Battaglia up to Edgedale and then to Hauser. The enclosed shop building, that's a 6,000 square foot, just a shop building where interior, that's where the oil can get changed. That's where the work would actually be done on a truck or equipment itself. And then the green building there is a manufactured home facility. So we'd like to be able to have the opportunity to have someone on site to be there for the trucks if they do come in for that irregular kind of support. In talking to the city of Eloy, I think the initial kind of understanding was, oh, you see trucks and you think of these kind of heavy truck operations. So I wanted to propose that's a additional condition of approval be put onto this project just to make sure to show that the scope is less than maybe what could be feared. And that is that we're conditioned to what our narrative and our site plan shows. And so we'll develop in conformance with that. And I know the I-2 zoning district allows other uses, and this would be the intent to narrow that focus so that we're developing as proposed. Here's an idea. Just this is the truck. So this is the typical truck. So it's not a commercial grade truck. It's just a typical modified a little bit to service local businesses. We engaged a traffic engineer to evaluate traffic impact and the conditions for access. We're projecting 3 to 13 trips. 13 would be the most trips in a day that would be generated for the project. This is, I think, what Commissioner Mooney had been mentioning. This is from ADOT's website, and then we overlaid our site onto it. So this 1,500-foot wide north-south corridor, it hasn't been funded by ADOT. It really is, I think of my young kid, my 1-year-old daughter, and I'd say I don't think she's going to be driving on that until she's well into adulthood. So hopefully it happens someday, but we really see this as this site makes a lot of sense as a low impact use for that interim until someday hopefully this road can be built and all the properties that would be along this area could be condemned, and it would make sense to build a freeway at that point and develop in conformance with Eloy's plans 1,500 foot wide, that's the study area. My understanding from ADOT is that it's a 400 foot. Ultimately, that's what they'll plan, is a 400 foot wide freeway, not a 1,500 foot. This is from the City of Eloy's website showing their general plan. Obviously, the dimensions are off because they don't show that as actually what the ADOT width is that would encompass our site. But as you can see to the west, they do have planned industrial, light industrial to the west of the freeway. So we think we're really an important use to support a local business that services here in Pinal County and is low impact, will work in this area and transition well in the future as development comes forward. So with that, I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Any questions? Mr. Hartman?
Vice Chair, thanks. Donna, what, do you have any additional comments on the City of Eloy as opposed to it? But they're thinking high density, but even though this is going to be a future corridor someday, ADOT corridor, do you have any additional comments to that to address their opposition?
Yeah, Commissioner Hartman, thank you for the question. In my discussions with the City of Eloy, they looked at their general plan and they saw this area generally on the east side as being, hey, we've got the nice mountains, I forget the range that's right there, that it would make a lot of sense to have, kind of our higher density residential development occur on that side of the city. And that's kind of where that vision was created. I really think that the misunderstanding was they saw, oh, I-2 heavy trucking. This doesn't correspond with that vision. But as we've discussed with them and showed, this is not heavy trucking. This is a 600,000 square foot shop with a manufactured home, really rural in nature. Something, and as Commissioner Schneff had mentioned, we don't intend to even pave the whole project. That's not the idea. We just need a gravel lot to operate. So we think it makes a lot of sense to be able to transition in the 25, 30 years when, who knows what changes during that time, but it makes sense for the property owner today to have this operation. But I know the City of Eloy wrote their letter and raised those concerns, but I don't think they're here today, so I don't want to speak too much to speculate on that. But that's my understanding is just that they have that general plan vision for 30 years down the road, and I think we're going to fit within that long-term vision.
Good. Mr. Scott.
So just to clarify, the vehicles that'll be serviced in this facility will be the owner's vehicles and not the construction site vehicles?
That's correct. So not the owner's personal vehicles, but the truck that that they go in, instead of them going to the Jiffy Lube in Chandler, they're out visiting a site, the Vulcan Materials site and doing that. So then they can swing by here and get their upkeep at a centralized kind of location.
Thank you.
Mr. Mooney.
Thank you. Can you just show the swath of the 1,500 foot, but then the next picture? Okay, then the next photo. What is that up above Hauser Road? I'm not familiar with Eloy. So it looks like that 1,500 foot swath is going to go through whatever that. Oh, well, I guess it won't be going through there. I'm not familiar with that area. Thanks for the clarity.
Thank you, Commissioner. You're absolutely right. That is the Nicola Lucid site. And so
so that 1,500 foot.
Again, this is the ADOT study is so far ahead of what could possibly be developed in this area, but that's I imagine they're not going to want to
move that.
Thanks
for the clarity. I'm just not that familiar with Eloy, so I appreciate it.
And I'll just add on to that, those of us that have been in the valley for a while, remember the 202. I mean, the South Mountain 202 was planned back in the late 60s, and it was finally completed, what, 7, 8 years ago. So this could be going on for a long time. Any other questions for the applicant? I had 2 questions for you. There's a residence that's on site that you said it's a office dwelling unit, modular home. Is someone going to be living on site with this? And then question 1, and if so, just back to staff, are we allowed to, is someone allowed to live on an industrial zone property?
Vice Chair Claude, thank you for the question. So there's no living on the site currently, and so the idea would be to allow that. The GR zoning right now, obviously someone could come and they could live there as well. And so it would be a very similar type living opportunity. The I-2 zoning, kind of why that zoning district makes sense is, and I'll let staff correct me on this as well, is that it does allow a caretaker facility to be on site. And so that's why we could have our operation and then have the caretaker. And so the intent is to have an employee who can actually live at this location. And right now that's happening out of a private home in Tempe. And so this would really give the opportunity to give them a little more breathing room there and focus the operation. So, and the location is really nice between Phoenix and Tucson. And so makes a lot of sense.
Chairman Klob, I can concur with John. The I-2 code does allow for an accessory residential unit.
Very good. All right. And then you had proposed a stipulation to be added. Is that something you want to add to the stipulation list?
Yeah, Vice Chair Klob, this really was to help to address the City of Eloy's comment, and so we hope that they would appreciate this. This is the language that we see in other jurisdictions and also in Pinal County as a way to show that we're going to be building according to what we're proposing. So that's this is the language that I would ask, and we gave this to staff. I know hopefully they've been able to look at it as well, and if there's any comments, we're happy to look at that.
So with that, I'd come back to the commission and also to staff. Are there any concerns with adding the stipulation? Comments about it?
Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, no concerns.
Okay.
That is the verbiage okay for stipulation for us to put in, or does it need to be changed at all?
It's a little vague, but we generally know it's supposed to be in conformance with the conceptual plan that's been submitted. So that's basically what I think it'll be suffice.
Do we want to tighten it up a little bit?
We would require it through the site plan review process. So if there's a site plan, we would look at that, and then the specificity of the site plan would be worked out at that point. So this is a just general acknowledgement. Are you okay with that, Patrick?
I do. Only point of concern I would bring up is the concept of developing in conjunction with the conceptual site plan as submitted. The county does have a requirement for 2 points of ingress egress that may be imposed on the site, typically under the site plan review process. I would just ask that be included as part of the verbiage.
We want to amend that accordingly then? I would agree with that, Patrick.
Does the applicant?
I would propose reliable plant maintenance PZ 00924 is to be developed in conformance with the written narrative and conceptual site plan submitted with inclusion of 2 points of ingress egress and in accordance with the applicable criteria set forth in Pinal County Development Services Code.
I'm okay with that. Applicant good with that?
That was really good. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Do we need to write that up to present it, or Patrick, can you say it again? When the time comes?
Sure. Just let me know when.
Very good. We'll keep it easy. All right. Any other questions for the applicant? No? Thank you, John.
Thank you.
I will open this up to the public. See if anybody, we don't have many people out in the chairs. So anybody want to speak to this? I'm not seeing any. I will bring it back to the commission for close the public session and bring it back to the commission for discussion and a motion. Commissioner Hartman.
Vice Chair. I will move that the planning and zoning.
Hello?
Mike. Mike.
Is it on?
Yeah.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission forward a recommendation of conditional approval of case PZ 009-24 to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the following one stipulation in addition to what Patrick's gonna state. Second stipulation.
Stipulation 2, reliable plant maintenance PZ 00924 is to be developed in conformance with the written narrative and conceptual site plan with inclusion of 2 points of ingress egress submitted and in accordance with the applicable criteria set forth in Pinal County Development Services Code.
Good. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Commissioner Scott, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, guys. And you guys really got the short end of the stick getting continued from last time. So thank you for. Thank you. And with that, I will come back to, let's see, what do we have?
Do you need a motion? Good, Jaren.
Call to the commission.
Oh,
I've got a few items.
Commissioner Scott.
I'd like to make a suggestion to staff that on these neighborhood meetings, especially in congested areas, that the meetings start at 6 p.m. and that they last for 2 hours. So everybody has enough time to get home and get adjusted and then come to the meeting and make comments if they choose. The other one, or do you have a comment there?
No, I'm good. Thank
Okay.
you.
The other one I have is on when we give somebody a continuance, that when they make any changes to the proposal that they have, that they highlight them in red or in another color. So we just don't have to read the whole thing cover to cover again to figure out where those changes are. And my last one, I assume that all the proposals that come before the planning and zoning meets all the qualifications of the county as far as zoning codes, things of the such.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
All right. Thank you.
What else? Mr. Mooney.
It hasn't happened for this June meeting in 2 parts, but have we developed a hard deadline on documents required for a case? And if the deadline isn't met, are there county requirements that it still has to be presented to us by a certain time frame, or can it be pushed out to the following agenda? I know that there have been, not for June, but just in May, we received documents late. And whether it's a continued case or a new case, it makes it very difficult to review and properly review. I can review everything, but then things have been sent in after the fact that might actually change something that you've already reviewed. So, and this is just for, you can answer it now and we can take care of it, or a future agenda, however it needs to be addressed. But that's just number 1 for me.
Okay.
I also had the same concern as Commissioner Case. Scott, what did I say, Case? Any cases coming back, please highlight the changes. And if it's okay to give an example, we had asked for the decommissioning of that solar project. But then when reviewing, there were more changes than we had originally asked. So that makes it difficult and frustrating to make a decision. I'm not sure why they made changes to something when one item was requested. I don't know if going forward, does that typically happen if they've left us and they've made changes to go to the Board of Supervisors? Because we've made a decision based on the information we were given.
I'm sure each circumstance is different. In terms of the facts on each one. So I don't know why they make changes. They, usually these projects are large and involved, and anytime you're building something or doing something, usually you change things along the way. So it's not unexpected, but I understand how it's frustrating.
So is that something then, as Commissioner Scott brought up, and I am, for things to be highlighted because we weren't expecting something to be? So is that a question you're like, did you change anything else besides giving us the decommissioning plan? I don't know if that's normal or not.
We should ask for them to highlight changes. They should highlight changes if they resubmit something to us. And we didn't ask them to make those changes, so we're aware of it.
So you're aware as well, not just
Yes.
us. Okay.
Yeah, we wouldn't be aware of it either if they don't highlight it.
I also had the same as the community meetings. If that's something or point of discussion, to be at least lasting 2 hours. I think the minimum was 1 hour that it needs to, and starts at 5. So even if it still started at 5 and it had a minimum of 2 hours, somebody could get there towards the end of it. That's something, just a talking point down the road. And I know this is difficult, but Karen's not afraid of bringing up difficult topics. Mistakes made on the agenda or in the packet. The case number was wrong, and it was a third number on the slide. And it's very frustrating because I feel like I don't look like I know what I'm doing, and we're flipping through going, where is that? There should just be a checks and balances at the county level for that. It was just very frustrating trying to figure out which case we were on. So those are my others. The iPads, I scratched that off because I heard from you, but I don't know if you want to discuss with everybody our discussion.
Well, it's not on the agenda, so we did make arrangement. If any of the commission members want to get a laptop, the IT will provide you a laptop, but will not support it. Will not provide all the bells and whistles we have on a typical laptop that a county employees has. So that would be the biggest difference, would be the laptop, but you'd have to provide the internet and all the associated things that you need with it. That's a possibility if you'd like one.
Maybe this is just, but we have to get the internet from the county. I'm not going to provide a hotspot on a laptop that we're given. I mean, I get that we had to do that at home. You have your own internet, but when we come here, it should connect with this.
Yes, you can, yes.
The computers will have
Yes.
internet connection.
Yes, you can
on
do
them.
internet.
Yes, okay.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't, I don't do hotspots, so, okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
I will just voice my dissatisfaction with the iPads myself, so I would request a laptop. They are almost useless in the format that they are currently in for us to use in a meeting, especially when it's a long meeting, so.
I think what speaks volumes is there's not one in operation on the desk today. Commissioner Hartman.
I thanks, Vice Chair. I just echo Commissioner Snath's comments. sign me up for a laptop.
Okay.
I do have one more thing, and I know it's been discussed before, but if we could just, I want it on the record. Figure out what's going on with the finance department. It's like they have it out for me and they do not want to give me the right amount of mileage. Because I got a form today that the mileage was still half, but added lunch for last meeting. So I'm just not quite sure why and I've said this to Dedrick as well. When I joined in January of 24, I've been getting the same amount of mileage. This will be the 5th time I've been given the wrong paperwork with the wrong amount. One time it even had my name, but somebody else's address. They got them all intermingled. And Corey isn't here right now, but he told me every month they manually go in and put this information. Well, it's very concerning. I'm getting a manual check. What if somebody else is getting a direct deposit? It's just frustrating. So
Mine was
if
wrong
they
today
can,
as well.
I'm sorry?
Mine was wrong today as well.
So, and it just to be on the record and get clarity, but this is, I shouldn't have to look at it every month. I used to just be able to sign it and turn it in. And I understand it's in the finance department. They're the ones that are now manually punching it in. So I'm not quite sure why it changes month to month.
Right. Okay.
Now that's it. I'm done.
Commissioner Scott, do you have something else?
No.
Like two things. Number one, also, Harvey, I've already emailed you. I think I emailed you or I emailed Todd that I'd be bringing my iPad back anyway. Having only 15 minutes of use at a given time, I think is not acceptable, but B is also rude. If I have someone presenting in front of me and I got to keep logging in, looking at them and logging in, they don't have my attention. And so I think that's very unprofessional. So, if we do get the laptops, let's make sure that they can at least stay on. So we don't have that. The second one, this is just a suggestion. I think it would be, I've seen some things online. I also agree with it because it's a tool that I use personally. This isn't an easy fix and this is down the road and I get that, but I think a discussion should be had. Having an online site plan of the county showing old projects and existing projects and proposed projects on what they are, where they are, and even backlinks if we have it available to the documents, to the site plans. It would be helpful as, the solar farm comes on and to be able to say, oh yeah, be able to go on a website and, oh yeah, we approved a 2,000 home subdivision. It's outside of the little picture window that we get here, but it's still only half a mile away. So it may have a direct effect or may not. Also to see other subdivisions that are happening. In Maricopa Magazine just posted a thing in their monthly, magazine over the weekend, showing all of the properties in Hidden Valley south of Maricopa that have been approved, some of them as far back as 20 plus years, but showing potentially 50,000 new home sites that could, in theory, come on board tomorrow. So as some of these developments are coming in, and the Santan Valley, it changes and evolves, it'd be great to see what's where, from a density standpoint, what's coming. And if maybe it shouldn't be. Maybe there's already enough high density that's there and been approved that we don't need to approve another apartment community or whatever. So I know that's a big undertaking and that's a budget item and so on. I look at like Chandler as a reference. Chandler, their GIS system has a really good system. It's color coded. New projects are one color, projects that are going through the system are another color. If you're looking for a base, I think they've done a good job there. Not all the information that I would love to see is on it, but I think it's a great start. And I also think it'd be a good resource for the community as a whole as well. So, any other items? With that, take a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? We're done. Thank you, guys.